I've got advice from the legal department that Rebel TV is an international company and it is mainstream media.
So can I just get that apology on camera?
Well, all I'm saying is...
Can I get that apology? Because what you just did to me and
I've given you a direction.
And can you say sorry? Say one word. Say sorry.
I've given you this.
Say sorry.
The legal department.
Say sorry. It's one word. You were wrong, I was wrong.
Thank you. You can wear your mask.
Say sorry. Say sorry.
Without wearing a mask.
There you go.
Go away. Seriously, take your mic out.
Don't touch the mic.
Get away from me, brother.
You're meant to be speaking truth to power. Are you here just to take your marching orders? Is that what you're here for?
Do you want to go away?
Not really. I'm here to do what you should be doing.
Yeah? Please take this out of my mouth. I'm going to have you escorted off with security.
All right. Do that. But you're at a synagogue. Why did you come to a synagogue if it's not about Jews?
Fight Palestine. War criminals in there.
How would you feel if Jews went to a mosque?
Shame on you. Shame on you for conflating the two.
Why are you talking about anti-Semitism when you're not Jewish?
Because I've been impacted by anti-Semitism.
Are you a Jew?
No, people think I am, and I've been called a fucking Jew and had someone threatened to kick my ass because they thought I was Jewish, so it's impacted me as well. We are not anti-Semitic.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yes.
I don't know. This guy's going to get punched out.
I just got threatened by the head of news and programming of CNBC. Are you serious?
That's him there.
Why do you think you deserve so much power? Hey, Avi Yemeni, should I be scared now? Push me, bro. What? What are you getting violent for, man? I could push just like you can, man. Look at these thugs. They fund wars around the world and then you question them. They try not only to intimidate you, but physically assault you. Jacinta, we understand it's easier to run away, but what would you say to the Jewish community for them to believe that you could keep them safe since you failed them for a year and a half? Look at that. Look at, what are you doing? Why are you blocking my way, mate? Jacinta, why are you running away from the tough question? Why are you running away? Like a coward. No Jew can believe you're going to keep him safe. You came for a photo op.
Free Palestine!
Oh, excuse me. Come here. Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us why you're so upset with me?
You can go get
Just like shouting at Jews.
Get the out of my face.
But you're the one that shouted at me.
And you ran after me. Off.
I like to talk to people who scream at me.
I don't talk to Zionists.
You mean Jews? Just say it. Say what you feel.
Yeah, okay.
Say what you feel. Don't be so scared.
I'm not scared. Scared of you.
Mate,
Who come and approach? Who come and approach?
Mate,
I'm
this
gonna
is-
fucking get you.
You're gonna what?
I'm gonna fucking get you.
What are you gonna do?
Leave.
What are you gonna do?
Leave.
What are you gonna do?
Leave.
What are you gonna
Leave.
do?
Hey, don't touch
are you gonna
it.
do?
You came my way. You f off. You
What are you gonna
understand? You came my way.
Stay out of the camera. Why
What now? What now? Show you? You want me to show you?
Can you tell us why you're still wearing a mask? Is that for COVID or to like protect your identity? Touch my... Look at her. So she's the victim now. She's the victim. Look at the victim. Is there a big Antifa in Switzerland?
I'm definitely an anti-fascist, but this is not a movement. You should also be an anti-fascist. I really hope for you you are, because otherwise you should get educated and ask.
I don't like fascists, but Antifa, I don't know about here, but around the world generally are pretty fascist themselves.
Oh my God, get informed, that's not true.
Just be a little bit more respectful.
Who are you?
A fellow person.
Hold on. If you think that's disrespectful, you have not seen my content, because that's like the most respectful I've ever been. Monique, you're known for your honesty, integrity, and all that. Where's your husband today? Is he got any of those core flutes? Well, it's disrespectful to make up excuses and then walk away. I waited here all the way till the end when you had no excuses left. How do you look in the mirror and see an independent? I just want to know why you're wearing an Antifa
make a statement
And what's that
that
statement?
we have to be anti-fascist.
And what is a fascist?
All have thinking.
And what's a fascist?
It depends. It's somebody right-wing populist that is willing to oppress other people. In regarding to thing, it's not anymore the discussion for me in all the context, the anti-fascist discussion as it was in the Second World War.
What about extreme left wing? Can they be fascist?
Fascist not, because I think in the definition, but they can be extremist and they can be also.
Can't be fascist?
Fascist? No, no, it's
Fascist is-
I never met somebody with.
Can you
who
give me the
identifies-
definition of fascism?
I mean, it depends, as I told you. For me, it
I
depends.
don't think you know what fascism means. Are you going to be taking questions, Prime Minister? Or is this just a photo op between tennis games? Are you not ashamed of what you've done in the last couple of years? If any other product in the world doesn't work as promised, you get a refund. Should you not refund to countries that laid out billions for your vaccine? Are you going to apologise for getting everything wrong, from mask mandates to vaccine mandates? Dr. Tedros, this is your chance to apologise to the world for your role during COVID. Would you like to take it?
Prime Minister, are you worried to take questions because you saw what happened to Jacinta Allan? Are you scared of answering the tough questions? Yesterday was the first time you didn't conflate anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. Is that because you recognise that a lot of the hate is from the Muslim community?
Why is the Prime Minister such a coward? Does he pay you to protect his cowardice? They say regaining trust is the theme this year. Are you part of the reason why they've lost trust in the WEF and everybody finally knows who you are and what you stand for? Thank you, Dr. Tedros, for showing us how transparent you and the World Economic Forum. Many of the arguments that are made against Israel can be made about Australia. Do you agree? Are you on stolen land?
Oh, we are on stolen land, undoubtedly.
And did we colonise?
We did, undoubtedly.
So now, if an Aboriginal terrorist group committed the same atrocities, would you agree?
No, which one? I better stop, Albie.
Do you know who Lydia Thorpe is?
I never heard of her. Linda Burney, no.
You don't know Linda Burney?
No, I don't know that name.
Do you know Jacinta Price?
Yeah, I know. I don't know Jacinta Price, but I know of her.
Do you know who Linda Burney is?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Linda Burney, do you know her?
No, I don't know her.
Yeah. She's the Indigenous Minister. Does she come here ever?
No, she's scared.
Do you think she's ever been here?
No.
Why not?
I don't know. Because if she's been in Northern Territory, she would have went to Darwin, because that'd be more safe for her, because if she came here, she'd get I reckon.
Josh, did you lend the Prime Minister your kippah? Is that your kippah you lent him? How do you reconcile coming to this, putting on a kippah, and your girlfriend is spewing hatred against Israel online? As you said, does she wear a keffiyeh more than you wear a kippah? Is that what happens?
If you refuse to move on, you'll be committing an offence. You'll get arrested for that offence.
Right, what's the offence?
Okay. Failure to move on.
Right, under which act?
Under which act?
Yeah.
Mate.
He was already arrested. He was already arrested.
Was that you? All right, mate. You're under arrest. Failure to move on.
Snitches get stitches. James, just so you know, that arrest is more real than the genocide. Are you comparing Trump to Hitler?
Well, I guess only time will tell, because...
Do you think that's kind of inappropriate, though, to call Donald Trump Hitler, a man that's responsible for some of the worst atrocities in recent history?
That was his father's friend. So if that's your friend and he's a bad person, is that wrong of me to call you a bad person too?
Older people like you guys, you can't grasp the idea.
Excuse me, I'm quite young.
All right, buddy.
I identify as 19.
Why is it harmful that people want to, identify as another gender? How does that harm you?
How does it harm you that I want to identify as 19?
It doesn't harm me.
Okay, so then why don't you accept it?
I didn't say I didn't accept it.
Do you accept that I'm 19?
If you want to say that, it doesn't f***ing matter. It doesn't affect me.
So will you take back your statement where you said that I was an old man?
What?
I support America where Trump is not the president.
So you prefer Harris, or you don't care, you just don't want Trump?
Let me say it like this. Anybody but Trump.
Are you going to vote for Trump?
Oh.
That was Benji. Benji's artwork.
That was good.
I haven't even watched it. That was we were given some fantastic advice from Daniel to put some highlight video in the beginning, but I did instruct Benji to at least include something with you. In fact, I told him which video. I told him the video where you get sprayed in the face, and he should keep going back to it through the COVID era.
Yeah,
but
I don't think Benji likes me.
Not once did he make it.
Even for Christmas, he just got me like a 4-pack of Red Bull as a present wrapped up. So, Benji, what's going on, mate? Put a few more shots of me in there. Well, any shots of me as you work on the intro. But yeah, it's a good start, and it's actually entertaining to watch at the start instead of just hearing the ticker, which people were complaining about. So I think it's great.
I think we'll have a few different videos for it to keep it interesting. But how are you doing, mate? You know what I realise is my blue LED lights, which are the only things that aren't automatic in here, aren't on. Oh, it's really annoying me.
Which blue ones?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go turn them on. In the meantime, guys, smash that share button. We've got 1,600 of you with us now, so thank you and good evening. Welcome to the show. We've got a packed night of interesting stuff that's breaking both here in Australia and overseas. Do you love how I'm saying Australia right now? My daughter's very impressed with it. So smash the like, subscribe while I turn these blue lights on, and remember, all the comments on my YouTube and Rukshan's YouTube are scrolling below, so get involved in the conversation on YouTube. And if you super chat, like I can see we have a couple already waiting for us, we will read every single one of those through the show. Talk to them for a second while I get these lights going.
Yeah, guys. So welcome to the show. We're back. I've set up here as well. I've got a new setup, so I've permanently fixed my setup. So this will be the kind of look that I have going forward as well. You've seen me over the last couple of weeks traveling in Sri Lanka, having different backgrounds, and even when I'm here, having more of a basic setup. So I'm slowly built up my space here as well. So what's the blue light? Oh, that's the blue light. So
did you see my pajama pants that I was wearing?
No, I did not see your pajama pants. But I was just saying hi to everyone and just, it's good to be back on a schedule, I think, in Australia. So looking forward to it.
Because you missed it. All right. Let's get straight into it, eh?
Yeah, let's get into it.
How have you been, by the way?
Yeah, I was just telling everyone I'm pretty good, yeah. I'm just kind of settled in now. So I've fixed up my setup a little bit. So going a bit more professional again. It's gonna be
Thank
good.
Goodness.
So enjoying
it. I was struggling by being the only professional one, and Benji's been looking for like promo shots to use of you, and this was basically like every time I go to, he shows me the thumbnail, and I'm like, because all your photos suck. So it's going to be good to have you on professional one. Let's hit those super chats right as we start. Go for the first one.
Thanks, Varun. Getting right in there with the super chats. Hey, Avi and Rukshan, do you have any confidence Jacinta Allan's response? What will it take for Labor to keep Aussies safe? Also, did you hear about the woman fired from St. Vincent's Hospital? I mean, perfect timing, Varun. I think we're going to get into all of that
We're getting into all of that stuff right now. Really appreciate the super chat. I feel like he just wanted to let us know he knew before us.
Yeah.
Flexing on us. Really appreciate the super chat. We're literally touching both those issues right now, so we'll answer that in a second. And Baz is back.
Thanks for super chat, mate. Dad is home from hospital and I can watch live tonight. Nice, Baz. So I think Baz is a regular. Last time, I think 2 weeks ago when he was watching the stream, his dad was in hospital, so it's good to have him back home, and Baz is watching the live stream tonight.
And Baz, all of you should learn from Baz, because Baz was saying to us, I don't know how Baz was doing it, because he kept, I think it's he, I'm assuming the gender here. Baz was telling us they're in hospital, he's in hospital and he's not, and he can't watch it live, but through the whole evening, he was super chatting us. So you can all learn from Baz that Baz supports us even when he can't watch it. A saint, I reckon.
Saint Baz.
Saint Baz. All right. Okay. So we'll start with the response. Obviously, over the weekend,
the Premier has announced a new.
We've done the. We did the live stream from the protests over the weekend around the country, which was really cool. For those of you who missed it, go back and watch it. It's on both our live things from 4 states. But that was obviously just after the second synagogue was firebombed. The restaurant was stormed and it turned violent against patrons and the Jewish restaurant in Melbourne CBD. And also cars were torched and tagged in, I think, Greensboro. So a wild night of action against Jews and Jewish businesses. And so the response that we've become so used to, well, this was the response from the Premier, and then we'll break it down, unpack it.
Yep.
Task force to halt a disturbing rise in anti-Semitism. The pledge comes as Jacinta Allan faces a barrage of criticism for taking days to publicly condemn the attacks.
A single bouquet on the Chants steps of the East Melbourne Synagogue and a pledge of support from the Premier, 72 hours after a night of anti-Semitic chaos.
Just as the fire came to the front door here of this shul, but it was stopped, so too must we put a stop to hate.
The first job of any leader is to turn up, and the Premier has turned up, albeit 3 days late.
The Premier's proposed fix a new anti-hate task force to convene this week, the details of which are scarce.
We'll be getting advice from Victoria Police on how the anti-vilification laws are being operationalised in this state.
Laws that don't come into force until September.
There's already been one task force. I don't know what's happened with that. Now we have another task force. Is this simply, dare I say, Jew washing to try and make it look like they are doing something without actually doing something? No more talk fest, no more task force. It's time to act.
It comes as police release fresh footage of a third incident. 5 hooded vandals captured scrawling slogans and setting cars alight at an Israel-linked weapons company in Melbourne's northeast on Saturday morning. Investigators are working to determine any links to the synagogue arson attack or the protest at this Israeli-owned restaurant.
It's just not Australian, it's not the Australian way, it's not what we believe in. Treat each other fairly. And let's make this place the best that it can be.
The fresh wave of anti-Semitism has sparked a call for an urgent National Cabinet meeting. The Premier says she stands ready and discussions with the federal government are underway.
What's it going to take for the 20 people who were actually inside the synagogue at the time to have been burnt to death?
The man accused of the synagogue attack is tonight behind bars as police probe any possible terror motives. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Sorry. So, what's your reaction watching that?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it so many times before, and I think one of the people in that video kind of made the point that this is another task force. We've had task force before, so what do these task force actually achieve? So there's a lot of politicking going on, a lot of these statements, you know, even from both sides, the opposition as well.
Yep.
I don't necessarily know what they mean when they say it's time to act, it's time to do this. It's not really clarified as well by the opposition when they try to score these points. I think everyone is kind of sick of what's happening, and from all perspectives. And I see a lot of people saying that they're tired of these incidents being used to infringe on people's rights and freedoms and, you know, free expression and things like this. So clearly there's a massive issue that's been brewing now for years now. It sounds crazy saying that. We have these, predefined statements that always come out each time that it happens, and it's always the same statement. Not much really gets done. It's not really addressed in a way, even if there's a task force. So I don't know, Avi. I don't know where it goes from here, because I feel like in a couple of months' time, we have another incident, another burning of a synagogue, and it's like another task force. So what does it all mean? What do you think?
I agree with you. So firstly, this happens every single time. And if you just think about what was the last synagogue that was actually burnt to the ground, they announced the counter-terrorism task force. Well, fast forward to today, to these incidents, and what did that task force get us? Nothing. We still don't have the perpetrators in that case. So I don't think the issue is about task force, and I tend to agree with a lot of people, some in good faith, some less so, but I tend to agree with the argument that we don't need more legislation. We don't need more hate speech laws. It is being used, and I've said this for a long time. I think the Jewish community is being used for the government to push through legislation they want to implement to give them more control and more power. But we don't need that, because really, if there are laws against all these things that are happening, they're just not being activated. In fact, we know now that on Friday night, police were actually told not to engage them and to let them go into that particular restaurant, which that, while the synagogue was, I guess, a pretty shocking event, especially on the back of the last synagogue that was actually successfully burnt down, and that there were also this time 20 people inside for the Sabbath. But I think the scenes that has, probably shaken more of the wider community is the ones from the restaurant, because I dare say most people that go to that restaurant probably didn't even know it's Israeli. They're just out on a Friday night, like many of us are, families, couples, enjoying the night. And the place that they went to dinner for, or the neighbouring restaurant that they were at dinner at, was suddenly under attack because of this group that, in this case, it seems police allowed them to go there and break every law along the way. And so that's what needs to happen. So when I think, I don't know, I'm not going to speak for the opposition because I have my issues with them too, but I think they need to clarify that. I think they need to stand up and say, stop with your new laws and your new task force. We have laws. Why did you let the police go? Why did there's a new police commissioner, isn't there? Why did he, on his first test, go there and allow them to do this? And then also target those leaders that have, look at, what's his name? The Palestinian leader of the Palestinian groups. But all of them, but pretty much the one that's given a platform on every channel.
Starts with M.
Yes. Anyways, those guys are all making videos essentially excusing that stuff or justifying it or whatever. But the next day they're given a platform on ABC while you and I are blacklisted. Do you understand? We have a problem in this country where we're excusing one form of violence against one. We don't need more legislation. We don't need more rules. We don't need to give government more power. We just need them to act on the criminality that's happening now.
Yeah, I see this language used a lot when it comes to these groups now. When an incident like this happens, they will be like, oh, it's a breakaway group. They broke away from the main group and they went there and they committed this violence. It's a convenient excuse. It's a part of the same groups. They mingle with each other. We saw with this restaurant attack, for instance, it was almost pre-planned in the sense that the feelers were put out there into the public that this is a place that should be targeted for whatever reason that people were coming up with. So this is a form, some people might not like this description, it's a form of terrorizing the Victorian public. Like the Victorian public are being terrorized on any given day in the streets of Melbourne. You could have a mob of pro-Palestinian people for whatever reason that they've decided that this place should be targeted, usually because it's something to do with Israel. They could come there, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what you're doing, you just happen to be in Melbourne, you're in that spot, you are now in danger, whether it's being burnt, because there's this pattern of setting arson into things. Now we've got buildings being smashed, chairs being thrown around, patrons being attacked in restaurants, and it's just unacceptable in our state. So, but like you said, the police have allowed this to happen. They've turned a blind eye to it. They didn't make arrests that forcefully on the night or try to stop these things from happening. And I've seen it before. I'd be like I remember the day that I got assaulted by one of these individuals at the council building, Melbourne City Council. That was a Melbourne City Council meeting for Melburnians. So
how long ago was that? And how long ago was that?
That was in October 2023.
And it's still happening. In fact, I don't know if you saw the video that I published yesterday because I used a lot of that footage in those episodes. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the video.
Yeah, so on that video, that literally, that's one of the organisers that was essentially justifying the violence. And the Channel 9 had the audacity to, call him a peaceful protester, even though he pleaded guilty for that against you. He pleaded guilty for another assault against me. So he's pleaded guilty twice for protest activity. And then he's also currently this month before the court for alleged kidnap and torture charges. And they present him as a peaceful protester. and he's anything but peaceful. In fact, right in their own report, as a reporting of violence from these protesters, he's justifying it, yet they're still calling.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is we have a problem here with the actual media. For a media that is so-called controlled by the Jews, it's doing a really shitty job for our people.
But it's not just the media. Like the point that I wanted to make was that day when that happened, the police saw what was happening.
Yes.
But they were afraid to act. This group got special rights and special privileges to control that whole area of the building. They set the rules. The police were merely just, keeping the peace, which is just watching members of the public being, assaulted or whatever. Same thing that happened in the restaurants. You're looking at your city. This is the police, right? They'll jump on you for like traffic fines and, things like this. The sheriff will come after you. COVID for masks, they'll go after you,
Grandmas.
Right? They're grandmas, literally members of the Victoria Police are sitting back and watching restaurants being smashed up because they're too afraid to act. It is insane. And this is not just, things like a mask where it's ambiguous, right? This is direct violence and threats towards innocent members of the public. Doesn't matter about the foreign conflict. That is not the role of the Victoria Police to adjudicate. They have to act on the ground as it's happening and apply the law fairly and stop this type of violence from happening. And that's not been happening. But there might be some pressure now, Avi. The
update in the story, we'll watch that in a second. Yeah. I was going to say something on what you were saying, but I totally forgot because I was just trying to stay quiet and let you finish. So we'll read some of the super chats and then we'll go to the update in this particular story. I guess the point that I just wanted to make is that during COVID, we watched them heavy-handedly deal with people who were not actually committing crimes. Since COVID, we've been watching the police sit back and essentially watch in front of them people committing actual crime, breaking law and order, taking away other people's rights from sitting at restaurants or just living in peace and walking down the street. And we know that they can do it. We know that they can also deal with the violent protests because they were able very easily in COVID to deal with protests, whether they turned violent or not. Most of the time they were peaceful, but even when people pushed back, the police were very quick to pull out those pepper spray, the tear gas, and you know what? The cops on the ground will be more than happy to use it. And all you need to do is once or twice, and I can guarantee you that those protests are going to learn to fall in line and to stop targeting the public in their protests. Go and do your protest, by all means. Go do your peaceful protests. Go. But this is our city. This is everyone's city. It's not your city. And they've made the point, and they're being, my problem is both the police and the media, because the media is enabling them by legitimizing him. Like Mohammed Sharab, that guy, they legitimize him by pretending like he's a peaceful guy while ignoring the fact that he has, for the exact things they're talking about, been pled guilty to assault. So he is by legal definition not peacefully protesting.
Exactly. And there's some comments like saying, Israel, this, Israel, that. We are living in Australia. This is Australia. Like, if you want to say that people in this country should suffer consequences and not be able to live a peaceful life because of foreign conflicts, well, based on the demographics of Australia, we should be allowing all manner of craziness to happen here because of all the blood feuds and ethnic conflicts we have all around the world. We cannot allow Australia to become like that. What your opinion on the conflict on Israel and in Gaza and Palestinian and Jews? None of that is poignant to what happens in this state when it comes to our peace and safety. That's the number one issue for me.
We should be able to argue about it. In Australia, we should be able to
protest,
argue it.
Whatever, we have that. Yeah, protest. We do that. We do protest. Like people are saying that these voices aren't being heard, that these being ignored. Almost, for years now, this protest has been going on weekly. Like, it's not being stopped in a way where people are being discouraged from protesting. Not at all. That's not what's happening. That's not what the complaints from a lot of people are about. It's about the violence, the targeted harassment, the arson, the terrorism, and look, conspiracies, whatever, you can go for your life. But the point of the story, point of what I'm saying is that we cannot have it happening where there's innocent members of the public involved, which is pretty much all the times that has happened now has been politically motivated crimes against members of the public. And it's just not allowed. It should not be allowed to stand. It should not be normalized in Australia, no matter what the conflict is.
Totally agree. All right, let's read a couple of these super chats and then go into the update on that story, which I actually think this first comment may be referring to.
Thanks, Thomas, for the super chat. Another healthcare worker stood down because of their hatred of Jews. This is appalling. It is not hyperbole to suggest that some Jewish people would be losing faith in Melbourne's health system. Sad.
I think that's one of, and we're going to get into that story. I thanks for the super chat and the support, Thomas. But I do agree with the comment, and I think is referring to one of the protesters who so brazenly was sticking her finger up at while being photographed by the media, has been stood down from St. Vincent's. I think we'll take a look in a minute. But yeah, thanks for the super chat. Really appreciate it. We've got a couple more super chats we'll quickly get through. Oh, Baz is saying he uses he, him pronouns. Appreciate it, Baz.
We will not misgender you.
We will not misgender you. I feel like I've got to I've worked out the super chats. What we've got to do is leave a question at the end of their super chat message, and then they follow up with another one. Do you see? It's a Jewish trick. No, I really appreciate Baz. You're always there whether I leave questions or not. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Anthony,
thanks for the super chat, mate. All state and Fed Labor do is talk about how this has no place in society, and yet nothing changes. It's just talking points and cliches from them. This is a part now of Australian society. This is normal in Australia. What we're seeing, we talk about it every weekend. I don't want to be talking about this issue, Avi. We talk about this because it's happening. People like to me, Rukshan, you and Avi, all you do is talk about Israel and Jews, but it's happening in the city of Melbourne. We have buildings in our city in Melbourne, people trying to burn them down. We have people being attacked in restaurants. So we have to live with what is going on right now. So it is a part of everyday life, unfortunately. And what Anthony says is correct, that they are just, talking platitudes when they're saying, this has no place in society. Well, it's actually become ingrained within our society, which is horrific to imagine. So how do we undo this? I think that's the challenge.
And
that's really there.
We've become infamous around the world for this now. Melbourne has become known for the violent targeting of Jews. It's been a shocking phenomenon around the world. But Melbourne, I got calls on was it Saturday night, for interviews in Israel about anti-Semitism here, that, and in America, you could see actually Fox News, New York Post. I was doing interviews about what's going on here because we've become the epicenter of that. And when people say to me as well, I know you get it, people ask you why we keep talking about it, and you say, well, it is the news. People tell me to shut up because, I'm somehow biased because I'm often the target of these attacks, or at least my community is a target of these attacks, or I am somehow biased about Israel because my family lives in Israel, or I'm half Israeli, whatever it is. And I'm you know what? I'm not talking about it for fun. I would love not to talk about any of this. I would love to go back to talking about, just the culture war stuff or whatever other political issues happening here. But everything we're talking about is always the headlines. Even today, somebody, when I shared the Tucker thing, which we'll touch on a bit of that later, the Tucker interview, they're like, Avi, talk about Australia. It's, that's, and I'm like, not Iran or not Israel. They said, not Israel. And it's you realize this Tucker interview is the interview of the day around the world. So I'm not allowed to talk about it because I happen to have an opinion from a personal position, and it makes you uncomfortable. If it makes you uncomfortable, just tune out. But super chat on the way out.
Yeah.
Tell me how much you hate me on the way out.
No matter what you do the super chat.
Yeah.
It is like that. It's just, we have to deal with it because it's happening in our city. And the thing is, today it's Jews, today it's Israeli restaurants, whatever. Once you embolden this type of activity, let's say there's some flare up somewhere else and, Christians are fighting some other religious group. Then in Australia, Christian, places of worship get targeted, or people sitting at a restaurant because it's owned by, some Catholic or something in Lygon Street gets targeted. Again, this is a hypothetical, I'm just saying, but you can't normalize this type of behavior because the groups involved in this forget about these kind of pro-Palestinian Islamist type individuals that are part of this kind of extreme movement. Not all of them, but there are some in there. You also have these kind of left-wing Antifa, far left groups who just want to cause anarchy and chaos. It's like they are using this opportunity that's being presented to them, where there is this conflict within public, this discourse, this debate about what's happening overseas. They're using it for perpetrating acts of violence, whether it's graffiti or smashing restaurants. So we have these groups being emboldened more and more, and you see how violent they are in the United States of America, like in places like Seattle and Portland, and they're rising to that level of violence here as well. And the police, if they don't get a handle on these groups now and set them in place, it's going to get worse and worse as we continue in the state of Victoria.
Couple more super chats quickly.
Farhan, thanks for the super chat again. How long do these protests have to go on for? When does it end? It isn't changing what's happening overseas. All we get is lockdown city every weekend. Yeah, look, I mean, this is the thing. So we right to protest, right to express themselves. If this group is so committed that they want to do that every week, the result for them, I think, it just usually gives these groups something to do. It feels like they're affecting change and having their, regardless of them saying people aren't listening to them, having their opinions voiced out there, because we are, of course, debating it every week almost. We're talking about this issue, so it is effective in a way. Whether it should end or not, I think I don't want to be the one to tell people that they shouldn't protest.
I don't think the protests should. Let them protest. I don't even care. I absolutely, obviously disagree with their positions, and I think they lie or whatever. But they shouldn't be disrupting the city the way they are. They should be, they shouldn't be breaking the law. They shouldn't be threatening people. They shouldn't be turning violent. All the criminal behaviour, including the disruption. That's the thing that's kind of true in there. Is like we keep locking down the city for it. It's like, where do we draw the line? Like, I do think that they should be able to protest.
Who do you blame for that though? Do you blame them or do you blame the government, the authorities, the police? Like, who do you blame for that situation?
I 100% blame the government. You know what? I know cops. Cops during COVID, a lot of them enjoyed being able to have, it was a bit of excitement having the war on the streets with the protesters. So you telling me that frontline cops are not going to want to take them on? Of course they do. But they've got their hands tied behind their back. They're told to police in this certain way. And we saw it again play out on Friday night where they were told not to stop them from going to that restaurant. So I absolutely blame the government. It's policy that's caused this, because the government on one hand doesn't want to annoy their voter base, which, whether you like it or not, those protests that we're seeing in the city, they're between Greens and Labor voters. They're the left, they're the far left to the minority ethnic community in the Muslim community. So it's that pool of people. So it's either voting directly for the government or people that will end up forming government. It's their voter base. So on one hand, they don't want to piss them off, because even though, because it's not just them, you even have the communities at home that are watching. If they look at the way that they'll be viewed by that potential voter base if they go hard on these protests. And so the government is taking this really soft-handed approach to it all. And just when there's something that there is genuine international outrage over, then again, we're announcing another task force. And I think the headline, the title of today's show is Jacinta Allan's hate crime, force or farce. It's 100% a farce.
Yeah, it's a farce. Like, I don't think anything will come out of it, to be honest, in terms of the task force. If you had the counterterrorism task force like last time, then what do we end up with? We had another synagogue being burnt.
Exactly.
So I'm not, how effective is this? We did have some, breaking news a few months ago with the CCTV being released of the perpetrators of that door. Where did that end up?
Exactly, and that could have been
where are these things going?
That was making it look like they did something. They had that footage the whole time. Suddenly they did this big announcement. Yeah. They had arrests associated that they say were associated. We've got nothing yet. I'm still hopeful that they actually do end up arresting those who perpetrated the crime, but also those especially who were responsible for it. And I hope that this amount of time that's going on is not because they're absolutely just failing us to the end. I'm hoping that they're being methodical and actually going after the people that ordered what had happened And so I the thing is, I don't think it should have taken this long, even if that's what they're going for. I think that those crimes were so serious. They announced such big task force, so many resources to it. Surely by now you would have the perpetrators and those responsible for ordering them to do it. But I'm losing faith, but I'm still faithful. I'm still hoping. I'm hopeful, but who knows?
Yeah. Thanks, Brett, for the super chat. Evening, chaps. Thanks, mate. Good evening.
Yeah, mate. These are all our usuals. I'm glad. I see we've created a bit of a community here.
As here is some more for the Jew grift.
You're not allowed to say that. It's anti-semitism.
Is it?
Yeah, they're gonna Jacinta Allan's gonna get you under the new task force. And you know what? We're joking around, but that is actually my problem with all those hate laws that they implement, is that it is rarely applied to who it was meant for.
Yes.
And so, and you know, we saw through COVID where they were applying counterterrorism measures that were designed to fight, you know, ISIS in the communities or extremists in the Islamic community here. They applied those to people breaching COVID restrictions. Yeah. Now, a lot of these hate law crimes or these anti-dox, like each one that they keep adding, they end up being used against those who are speaking out against the government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you put to the? Because look, I do see there are a lot of, like, I guess, Jewish groups, institutions, you know, community groups that represent, you know, or say they represent parts of the community that kind of call for these tough laws and tough things. Do you think they are kind of getting carried away with the way that they're asking for those things? What do you think personally?
So the Jewish community is not monolithic. There is like the broader community, there is a spectrum. We've talked about this before. You've got all the way from the far left, which, just like in the broader community, also hate Israel and self-hating Jews, and we refer to them as capos, like they're the people in Nazi Germany that would have been in charge of rounding up the Jews for them. Then you have, like, you know, like the Soros, the George Soros types of people. And, you know, and that's not even a joke. George Soros, like, in an interview, I think he mocked the fact or laughed off his role as a kid or whatever, as a teen, in Nazi Germany. So, yeah, you have there. Then you've got your, you know, a big part of the community, I think, like I think we've talked about this before. A big part of the Australian and American community, the established community, the establishment, and a lot of the organisations were centre-left. October 7 has changed things. I think since October 7, and since they've realised that a lot of their interfaith stuff is just backfired, the people that they were, you know, people like me that they were condemning within the community for being so-called far-right, they realise now they're saying all the same things as me, except for something like free speech. They do love the censorious things. They do advocate for that. But again, that is that's like the establishment organisations. But there's also massive organisations, like the largest and fastest growing Jewish organisation from a grassroots level is the Australian Jewish Association. They're against all that stuff. They advocate against hate speech laws, and, you know, and they've been fighting for years against 18C and all these things. So yeah, there is a part of the community, and you can even say a powerful part of the community that does love censorship laws, which is just ridiculous, because history proves it has never been good for us as Jews to be pro-censorship. It's always, as I've said, been used against us first. But it's like any community. It's like any left-wing organisation. Like, they are just... And you can call them out for that. Like, I call them out for that. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, it's not because they're Jews. It's because they have left-leaning views on how to approach these things. And the truth is, you know, as Jews, you can feel... It doesn't matter what kind of Jew you are. That's the thing. It doesn't matter if you are the super lefty, Israel-hating, you know, self-hating Jew. You're copying the hate from all sides anyways at the moment. Yep. So I think these organisations, they're preaching to a community which right now is feeling the stress, and the stress is real, and they're in fear. So they're basically presenting... See, that's the thing. They're filling in a gap. These organisations that are pushing for censorship, they're giving people something to kind of fire up about, something to support, to say, this is a solution that'll help us. And it's misguided. I do my best within the Jewish community to tell people we don't need that. And there is also a growing sense I can see within Jewish groups saying exactly what I said in the beginning of this, is that, really, we need more laws?
Yeah.
You're not even implementing the current laws. And I dare say that's the majority feel that way. But like you said, organisations like the lead peak bodies, except for the Australian Jewish Association, the JCCV, all these other organisations, the Zionist Council, all these groups, they do tend to support their anti-hate laws, which is like, that's the political debate. I will debate them about that. I do debate them about that, and we have that debate in the broader community. I don't think it's fair to just say that it's. I think they're getting used. Like, I think Jacinta Allan is looking at is taking the opportunity to empower herself. Give herself more powers to control, and she's using the Jewish community's plight. And these useful idiots within the Jewish community leadership are jumping on board and stamping that with a stamp of approval. And that's how they're getting used. I don't think it's actually their ideas, which is the way it's often presented.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a fair comment.
Couple quick last. We're getting the super chats tonight. I'm loving this.
Thanks,
our audience.
Thanks, Kieran. Thanks for the super chat. Hey guys, I was at Bataclan in Paris in 2015. I'm worried something like that will happen in Sydney or Melbourne. So that was the Paris terrorist attacks at the nightclub and a few other places, I think. And that was horrific. And we have been fortunate not to have a mass casualty terror incident in Australia to the extent that we've seen in Europe and the United States of America. I know we're just on the 20-year anniversary, I think, of 7/7 from the UK. So we have seen around the world just the end point of allowing and ignoring these things festering in society, because I think it does result in these type of mass casualty events where someone then becomes so emboldened to take this type of action, where people are bombed or murdered, stabbed, in whichever way as a terrorist attack. So I'm definitely worried about that in Melbourne, especially, and Sydney. I think it's a possibility.
It's going to happen. I'm sorry to break it to you. If we don't change the trajectory of where we're heading, it is inevitable. And guess what? To all those haters out there that hate Jews and hate it, guess what? Jews at least have a backup plan, because at the end of the day, if Australia continues down the road it's going, and it ends up, like Europe, like Britain, Jews can always flee to Israel, which was by design. The rebirth of Israel in 1948 was so Jews have a safe haven to go to when the local population, wherever they live, whether it was in the Middle East, in Europe, in Australia, turns against them, they have somewhere safe they can flee to. So Jews have, at the end of the day, like it or not, a backup plan. What are you going to do? So the only thing you can do now is to stand up and fight, and don't get caught up in, it's such a joke to me. I've been watching Charlie Kirk's tweets. I haven't been loving everything he does, but you see some of the points he's making lately. He's like this super focused by this new woke right about Jews controlling everything, the media, the banks. The media just gets me because we get the worst press, but whatever. And he's like, have you looked at what's happening in the West? You think the Jews are taking over? The people taking over are coming after the Jews first. And I guarantee you can bookmark this. When they're done with us, they're going to come for the rest of the Australian population, whatever other non-them minority you are. And you'll wish you did something before it was too late. And right now we can do something as a community because we're still in the majority.
Just look at the UK. Look at the UK. I mean, that's the best way. That's the worst case scenario of what we face in Australia, of what's coming.
I'm going to be careful with the next one's all right. I'm just going to say I'm skimming these before because I think last time we got limited ads because of some of the stuff that came up, but that's right. That doesn't say anything bad. It says where. Do you want to read it?
No, yeah, normal is overrated. Where do these references from the Quran sit against the hate laws? Please reference, and then we'll leave it on the screen. Normal's given a few surahs or verses from the Quran, which is about children. Please research these, team.
Which is a good point. Like when you talk about hate speech laws in general, when you look at any religious text, and the Quran is full of it, but even Old Testament stuff or New Testament. I don't know. I'm not New. I've never read the New Testament, but I've read the Quran and I've obviously read the Torah, and there are things in there at the Quran especially, but even the Torah, when you talk about Amalek or whatever, there would be verses in there that would be, or even when you're talking about not what it probably says about gays, it would potentially, out of the context of reading it, would be considered hate speech. And it's like, where do we draw the line? And that's the thing. That's what the government does struggle with, because what ends up happening is they implement these laws, and like I said, it never gets used against those that are actually threatening the Jewish community. Why? Because they tend to be this minority who, like in Labor's case, it's their voting base, but also it's not politically correct to go after them.
Yeah. Definitely.
Thanks for the super chat. And one more super chat and we'll go on to the update.
Thanks, Veronica, for another super chat. But as a Jew, I see hope from events like on the weekend. It was very uplifting seeing many Jews, Indians and Iranians in Australia Christians in Australia last weekend. Yeah, I mean that it was a small event in comparison to the numbers that you kind of get out there. But I do hear, just amongst people I talk to and just in general public, when you're talking about this in a normal setting, out of the political context, most people are horrified at what's happening in Melbourne. They see all of it as the one thing, whether it's the crime and these gangs, or whether it's the anti-Semitism that we're seeing and these attacks on synagogues and people going out of the city. Like people actually feel it and see it as a direct attack on their way of life. And they don't like what's happening in Melbourne and Victoria.
Okay, let's go up to the update on this story.
Been arrested over the protest outside an Israeli. 3 people have been arrested over the protest outside an Israeli restaurant in Hardware Lane. We'll go live now to Lana Murphy for the latest on this one. Lana, they've been charged.
Yeah, Tom, with some pretty serious offences, including assault, affray, riotous behaviour and criminal damage. Police executed 3 search warrants this morning and arrested the 3 people they believe are the key antagonists in this violent protest. They say that is a 50-year-old man from Richmond, a 48-year-old woman from Footscray and a 28-year-old woman from Essendon. Police say they were among a group of about 20 pro-Palestine activists who stormed the Miznon restaurant here in Hardware Lane after 8 o'clock on Friday night. It turned violent quickly, with the intruders throwing chairs and smashing glass after making offensive chants and gestures towards staff and diners. Now, one of the women captured on camera screaming and flipping the bird to patrons is a woman called Jemima DeManuel. Now, she's a well-known anti-Israel activist who has now been stood down from her job at St Vincent's Hospital, where she transferred patients. The hospital says it will do its own investigation into her conduct. Now, Tom, 4 days on, we have also finally heard from the restaurant owners who have said they want their food and culture to do the talking for them. They've said we're a restaurant, a place of hospitality, of warmth and welcome. Our greatest joy is to feed people from every background and viewpoint and to see the joy on people's faces as they enjoy our food and each other's company. And that is our purpose and our objective. Now, the 2 women who were arrested this morning, they have been released on bail. The 50-year-old man, he will face a magistrate tonight.
Lana Murphy with the latest. Thank you. 3 people.
Well, that is, I think, the definition of F around and find out. But guess what? We didn't need a task force to do that, and they could have done it on the bloody night. Your mic, is that, am I not hearing? No, you're not getting, have you silenced yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me now? I was silent. Yeah, you don't need a task force for that. They could have done it on the day. It's a lot cheaper as well. This has probably cost the police more and obviously taxpayers more as well to do it this way, but it's embarrassing. But I think, look, in a way, it's good that they're clamping down on acts of violence. With the woman that was let stood down at her workplace. That's more of a grey area. Obviously, people should be able to go protest and feel free to voice their opinions without having issues at work. But I don't know what the policies are at that particular workplace.
And I'd argue, okay, so I think firstly, what was her role that night? And you're part of and it's not like you just went to protest, you were part of a violent mob.
Of course.
So it's very different. Like I don't think somebody should, and she hasn't been. They're saying I do recognize her face, but they're saying she's a well-known anti-Israel activist. She's been doing that the whole time. She's never had a problem at St. Vincent's. It was the moment she decided to join the mob in targeting a restaurant, a Jewish restaurant in the city, where they go, okay, this might go against our policy, especially within a hospital.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and we've seen in New South Wales what that type of thing leads to, where it's nurses talking about, killing patients because of their ethnicity and because they don't like them. Now, obviously, there's been what did they receive? Do you remember what the punishment was for those nurses? Were they suspended or?
Oh no, they were sacked. They were sacked. They also lost their
license,
their licenses, and they've also just been banned from NDIS. And in their case, good. Like you're meant to be like it's the one job where, as Australians, no matter what background, you need to rely on you need to have faith in the fact that if you're unwell and you go to hospital, that the person on the other side isn't going to find some excuse in which to either not treat you, sabotage your treatment. And here you have somebody there very proudly at a restaurant. So she's saying by doing this action that she's justifying violence against an innocent restaurant and its diners because she's found some justification. So just put it this way. Like if I ended up going to St. Vincent's and she ended up being the nurse to deal with me, what you're telling me she's not going to have a justification in not to sabotage my thing? Of course she does. She thinks it's okay. And that's why I think especially in that industry, it needs to be super strict. Like if you want to get into something where you're actually helping save people, you need to have a higher moral standing. You've got to be a genuinely empathetic person, and that doesn't mean you can't have political views or go to protests, but it definitely means if you cross that line into violence against innocent people, then and violence in general. Like if you're willing to turn violent for the cause, I think. It's probably not the industry for you. You can go do something else.
Yeah, I mean, definitely St. Vincent's must have some type of standards and stuff that they expect from their workforce, which they're enforcing at the moment. So I'm not sure what the end result of that will be, but it is interesting. Like, I'm not sure if they acted on that by themselves, if the police came to them, or if someone else complained. That's all my kind of view of that was. Just how did that come about? But it is an interesting development for sure.
Yeah, I'm just quickly reading up to see if there was anything interesting that wasn't in the video report. Yeah, they're just saying pending a full investigation. So St. Vincent's is aware of social media content connecting a staff member with protests that took place at Melbourne CBD restaurant on Melbourne on Friday night. So they're specifically saying that they know that it was at the restaurant. St. Vincent's is a health organisation founded on love and compassion. That's the word, compassion. You've got to be a super compassionate person to be holding that role. For people to have faith in our health system, it has to, like the nurses, more than doctors, the nurses have to be compassionate because that is literally what the nurse's role within the hospital is. All patients, whatever their backgrounds and beliefs, are welcome and safe in our services, and we have zero tolerance for any behaviour that interferes with people's right to feel safe while going about their lives. Heraldson can also reveal how did they pronounce it? Demu-Lee? I'm butchering that. I wonder what that background is. Let me look it up. let's see if let's do some investigative journalism live.
Google.
Yeah.
Google.com. You can ask Grok.
Yeah. It means from Connecticut. So it's like it's common in Malta. Be surprised. The Maltese are pretty chill people, but hey, it's maybe she's just grown up. Where'd they say she was from? What area? She was like from somewhere lefty. It appears regular weekly protests as previous. Oh, this is interesting. This wasn't in the report. Has previously been charged over antisocial behaviour at protests.
Oh.
I'm assuming she was. Here. She was hauled in front of the magistrates' court in May for charges including obstructing an emergency worker on duty and behaving in an offensive manner in public. It's understood she received a good behaviour bond with no conviction. When the Herald Sun called her for comment, she hung up. Wow.
So there's a history there now with the workplace. That makes more sense. That makes a lot of sense now.
Yes.
Interfering with another emergency service worker. Interesting.
Which I'm assuming is probably a cops at the protests.
Maybe.
If you're being kind, you'd say that. Otherwise, it's insane if it's like against an ambulance or something.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, Victoria Police revealed 3 of Miss DeManuel's. DeManuel, is it? Does somebody know how to pronounce English?
Someone in the comments said Avi's struggling with 4-syllable words again.
I know. Damn. That's a name. That's not my fault. Fellow activists have been charged over the chaotic incident at Miznon after they were arrested in a sweep of warrants by detectives from Melbourne CIU. Guess what? It wasn't the task force. They are a 28-year-old from Essendon. The Essendon woman, that's definitely a lefty. 48-year-old Footscray woman, that's also a lefty. And a 50-year-old Richmond man. They're all from those areas, aren't they? All have been charged with assault, affray, riotous behaviour, and criminal damage. Those are pretty serious offences. Miss DeManuel, we'll give that, has not been arrested or charged. How would you pronounce it? DEMANUELE. DeManuel, I would say.
DeManuel, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to try.
I just don't want to be the only one stuck with this. He's not came under attack. We know all that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Was there anything on that story you wanted to add, or?
Nah, that was pretty self-explanatory. Yeah.
All right. Watch this space. We'll see how that all plays out. Okay. We're gonna completely shift gears. Okay. And I know you sent me an update, which I will then play, but let's start with this.
Now to the breaking news overnight about the Jeffrey Epstein files and the conspiracy theories officially being rejected. Overnight, the FBI and Justice Department releasing 11 hours of footage they say helps confirm notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his Manhattan jail cell in 2019, awaiting his sex trafficking trial. According to a memo detailing the findings, investigators found the video showed no one entering the area in the overnight hours before Epstein was found unresponsive. But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. For years, Epstein has been at the center of conspiracies surrounding both his death and a rumored client list allegedly used to blackmail powerful men. Attorney General Pam Bondi, back in February, was asked if the Justice Department intended to release a list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients, Bondi saying this.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
And just last month, while feuding with President Trump, Elon Musk posting, "Time to drop the really big bomb. @real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump." But Musk later deleted that post and others, saying he went too far in attacking Trump. The president saying he cut ties with Epstein nearly 2 decades ago, saying even Epstein's lawyer cleared him. This is the first time the Trump administration has officially contradicted conspiracy theories about Epstein, theories previously pushed by members of the administration.
It's a cluster F word because it's a bit of a mess, to be completely honest. Massive mess in terms of, I think, messaging, just how strongly the people that are involved now in saying that there's nothing to see here went after these files and the list, from the president
I like
down.
Dan Bongino.
Dan, Cash, they're all great. But
and I have a relationship with him, and I trust him, but something's not adding up here.
No, they're the ones that prosecuted the case to get the list made public. Like, if you look at Dan Bongino's, even Cash Patel, their public statements on their shows for years.
So if you're being favourable, you'd say that they're being lied to. And before they came in, somebody burnt the evidence.
I mean, there's a lot of possibilities of what's happening here. And I think perhaps people are jumping to conclusions as well. Now, there is a lot of also weird things which have gone on. Like at the start of that video, Avi, they were saying that they released the film footage, right? But there's a 1 minute missing. Right, I don't know for what reason, if it's a glitch, if it's been intentionally taken out, but from 12:59 or 11:59 to 12 p.m., there's 1 minute of footage missing from that video that's been released.
Is that in what you just sent me? Was that like?
No, that's not in there. But that's been discussed at length now, because just that 1 minute of footage being missing from that CCTV footage.
That could be everything.
Well, what does that do? Well, not could be everything, but it just opens the door to more conspiracy theory. It could be something, it could be nothing, but it just opens the door because it's not there. So even the botched release of that, the release of the statement, all these things do not paint the Trump administration in a competent way in terms of handling the messaging around this. It's not to say that what they're saying is wrong, or the other side is wrong. It's nothing like that. Just the handling of the messaging around it, I think, has been a bit of a disaster for the Trump admin.
I'm gonna set down this rule from now on. Don't send me bloody Alex Jones. I just don't want his logo on our screen. I'll do it this time. I'll give you one pass.
Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News.
Go ahead. John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable, and I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, she's been a stellar press secretary for
they're not giving her much to work with.
Since she started, but they're not giving her much to work with. It's like very difficult, the situation that a lot of these people have been put into. And honestly, like, there has to be some type of list. Now, what that list is I think what's up in the air. And I think maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate here. It could be a list of just all types of contacts. A lot of innocent people caught up in it as well. People say like he was someone that kind of had business with a lot of people, including Trump and many others. So there could be a lot of innocent individuals caught up in this whole mess, and they could have made a call on it. The more plausible thing, I think, what you said before, Harvey, is, Comey. We had Biden in there for 4 years with his FBI director Wray, and all these people in there that are also incriminated in some manner, right? The Democrats, and they had years to bury these things and either destroy evidence or get rid of things. And it's possible that these guys are not working with much when they're looking at it today. So that seems more likely that a lot of this has been sanitized over time.
I know, but I feel like they should just come. I think they should come clean with that. The only other look, there's no good.
Because look, she has to. If there was sex trafficking, was she just sex trafficking to Jeffrey Epstein? Like, was he it? Or is that sex trafficking? Like just procuring prostitutes just for him in their relationship that they had? Or was it something? Because the way that they made it out in that court case, and if you look at all the videos and statements from Trump and the team before that, it was like this massive grooming, sex trafficking ring, and that she was a part of it, and they were supplying girls and minors to all of these other individuals as well. So who are these people? Like, what exactly is she in jail for? Is it just that one incident? Where's all these thousands of pages of evidence? Like, these are legitimate questions. And I think all of that is now, interestingly, even people who are like kind of anti-Trump Democrats are asking questions now about.
That is funny to me. All the people that wanted to ignore it before, like we've been talking about it for years.
Yeah,
people that
we've been talking about it for a long time.
People that want to ignore, that were happy to ignore it during the Democrat, through the Biden administration, suddenly they're all super keen to know what's happening. But I tend to agree, and I think there needs to be more transparency around the whole issue. I think that's the problem. Even if there is,
we need it from Trump. You got to hear it from Trump. I think he's the president. He can, like, whatever he says is declassified or whatever. Other people, there's too much hoops and stuff to jump through. Trump needs to come out, do some interview, and just lay it all out there as it is, good or bad. And then
if I had to guess,
all the way they are.
If I had to guess, I think it's a mix between all of it. And like, look, there's no secret Trump was involved with Epstein through there. There's probably, I feel like what they do have, there's, whatever they do have, if they put out part of it, it means they got to put out all of it. And all of it is no good for a lot of people on both sides. Yeah. That's my honest opinion about it. And like, it makes no sense to me that Ghislaine Maxwell is the only person sitting in jail today over the whole Epstein stuff. And it's annoying to me also. I say every day we hear the conspiracy that, it's just because he's Mossad, and mate, if it was just Israel, they would have thrown him under the bus a long time ago. Don't forget, there have been Mossad agents jailed for years in America. If that's all it was, and to save their own skin and their own reputations and their own everything, they would throw the Israeli intelligence under the bus. Like, literally, what was it? In the last Trump administration, he released the last guy who'd been in for years in jail for releasing documents to the... So they would have no problem to do that, because to them, what comes first is their own career and all that. I think, and whatever it is, I think the truth, I think sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we do need to see the actual, whatever they have. Whatever they have or don't have, whatever evidence they have of destroyed evidence, and whoever it takes down, it takes down. Like, that's
It's also possible for someone like Trump to keep this hanging around like a big distraction whenever he needs to kind of distract with something. Maybe. Like, it's like he does stuff in mysterious ways, and it's possible there's something like this going on as well. It's not very clear.
The only thing I know for sure is there isn't nothing. Suddenly, nothing to see here. It just doesn't make sense. The whole story doesn't make sense right now. And I do hope we get to the bottom of it. They were acting super confident about it. And they even did that whole spiel where they had all those influencers come into the White House, and then they gave them these binders, got them to pose with it.
They're getting wrecked online. I don't know if you've seen the photos of like
all the people,
Drano, Cernovich, and libs of TikTok. With them holding the banners up, the binders up. People are trolling them big time. Like, what was in those files? Why were they so confident? And this is the admin that kind of
look in all their defenses is they got that. They were taken outside. They did the photos. No one got to review it, and it turned out what were in those binders was less than what's already in the public domain. Like it was a nothing burger. And that's a problem. Like if the evidence was destroyed early and they kind of knew it already, then why did you play this whole charade? Like, did you think people were going to just let it go because they're Trump's? Like, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm probably way more of a Trump supporter than a lot of the people leading the charge against Trump about this specific thing. But I just think the way it's been handled has been so stupid and dishonest. Again, it's been more dishonesty, and I don't think it's necessarily Trump. I don't know. Maybe it's people trying to maybe it just doesn't. Maybe it's a bit embarrassing for Trump as well.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Trump did prior to the election use it as a talking point here and there. To garner favor with the MAGA supporters. And that's why you're seeing a lot of discontent amongst his follower base on this, because this was like one of the major key pieces of getting Trump elected was to see these files. But I do feel some people in the comments saying we'll never see these files, but it could be like the whole JFK thing, like 50, 60 years from now, when all these people that are involved in that list and a lot of the people that might be innocent on that list, that their lives could be ruined, for instance, if this list was released to the public, because we know how conspiracy theories go. So 50, 60 years from now, some other administration will be like, we're going to finally release the Epstein file list, just like how Trump did with some of the JFK documents. So I think there's still a possibility we'll see all this stuff, this material, but perhaps not during the Trump administration. And I think that's going to be a point of criticism from mainly his supporters for the rest of his administration, if there's no action on this front.
It's going to be used very much so by the new camp, like the new Elon kind of camp.
Yes, of course.
And the woke right that want to... Like, I'm saying it as a Trump supporter, we need more transparency around it. I understand that there is clearly something under there working, and there's a reason why they're being dishonest about it. I hope it's not for the most nefarious reasons, because I'd hate to think that it's that bad, but it might be. But definitely those that want to take down Trump, whether they were the woke right or the new Elon camp or whatever it is, they're going to ride it. They are going to ride it. So I hope Trump is seeing what's going on, and obviously he knows the truth. So work out a way to be more transparent with everyone, that he can. Well, firstly, I just really want to know, and I think the world wants to know, but also just so he can.
Well, as a hypothetical, Avi, let's say that there were people on that list, just business associates. If that list were to be released in its full form, would their lives be ruined? Let's say they did absolutely nothing wrong. They just knew this pedophile freak, and he just happened to have...
I don't necessarily think so, because if you look at, there's people that have already been outed for that, and their life has not been ruined from it. I think the details will matter. So, if you're saying you're just on a client list, what's the client list? What is it? Like, was it a client list to use his plan? Like, I think the details will matter. There have been a lot of people that outed for associations, just like Trump has. Trump's a perfect example. He's been outed many times and the photos of Trump and him have been published many times, in a way to kind of delegitimize or whatever,
Trump,
character assassinate or whatever. So that it's been used against him and it hasn't ruined his life. I think there is something deeper, and I'm hoping for some transparency. One, for for transparency's sake itself, but also for Trump's legacy. Like, I don't want this to be used against him by those bad faith actors who pretended to be Trumpers in this last election. They may have been previously, but there's a lot that in this last election either actively promoted Kamala Harris or said not to vote for Trump, and then are now seizing on that opportunity. I just like his detractors. I really don't want this free kick. That's all. Let's read a couple of the super chats.
This is from Abby King. Bongino constantly looks scared and on edge these days. It's so interesting, right? Someone like Dan Bongino, who's gone from, kind of doing what we're doing at a higher level, commentating on all these issues, and then being like privy to all this information, and then not being able to discuss it in the same manner.
I know.
Like it's a very interesting. Like you don't normally see that crossover, right? And you are seeing now when you watch Dan Bongino and even Kash Patel, when they're talking now, and you look at their old videos and you look at them now, it does seem shady. It does seem like
they would 100% be sitting here telling us not to believe those guys.
Yeah, exactly. They would be saying that those two, the FBI director and his underling, are suspicious as hell, and they're hiding something. These guys would be saying that. You're right.
And I love Bongino. He's always been a solid guy. And it was funny when he actually won. I was like super excited. I was like, I said to him, congratulations. I was like, dude, I'm texting I went from being banned from the States to knowing the number 2 copper.
There you go.
But it is a wild way to think about it.
Spets, thanks for the super chat. They had 4 years to destroy evidence. Not that shocked there's no longer anything to release. Also, I like Bongino and Patel, but don't trust Bondi. She should be doing a lot more for the Trump admin. Yeah, so Pam Bondi, she's copying a lot of the flack. The Attorney General.
And probably rightfully so. Because
her communication style is not that effective.
Yeah, but it sounds like because she was the one who said it was all on her desk. Like, it sounds like she was either bullshitting then, just going with the flow, or it seems like she's covering up. Now, it's funny that the press sec actually gave her a better excuse than she's given herself by saying, no, she meant the files on her desk, because she did say the client list. But the press sec is actually quite good at what she does, and she's pivoted for her. But yeah, I think she hasn't helped herself, and she is copying a lot of the criticism.
Yeah.
The normal haters are going after what's his name? Patel. And
Patel, yes.
And they're just making fun of him because what is he? Is he Sri Lankan? No.
No, he's actually he's Ugandan. He's African technically. He was born in Uganda, and then they came to the United States of America, I believe. So he's an Indian ethnicity.
Isn't that like that's exactly like
Zora? Yeah, because why?
Although is he Muslim? He's not Muslim. What's his name's Muslims?
Yeah, Patel's, I believe, Hindu. But it's like when what's his name, Idi Amin, kicked all the Indians out of Uganda, so they all had to go different places.
What are you going to do when they kick everyone out of Australia?
Well, this is the thing that happened. So Idi Amin kicked out all the Indians, and then they paid money for the Indians to come back because the country fell apart. So, a lot of them came back and retook over the businesses and the land. And they were paid.
Are you hoping they kick out all the Indians from Australia?
Well,
and then you'll go live in Thailand for a few years, and when they pay everyone to come back, you're going to be ready?
This will be clipped, so yes, I think once they deport me, because I've actually seen, we should go through the plan of the National Socialist Network. They've put out a plan for deportation. So once they do deport me and take my assets, like they've said they will, eventually they'll have to bring me back, give my assets back, and return my businesses to run the country in a functioning manner again.
Well, one of the questions I asked National Socialists at that time, remember when I interviewed Saul, I was like, because one of them threw the Free Palestine. That was the day that both the National Socialists and Antifa both screamed Free Palestine at me, and that was before October 7th. And they were dressed the same and all that. And then I said to him, and they were basically going on about Palestine, stolen land, blah 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 blah. And then so I said to him, firstly, I don't get it. Why are you against Israel? You should support Israel because then the Jews that you hate so much have somewhere to go. Otherwise, where do you want me to go?
Yeah, that's a valid point.
I don't get, where do they want to deport me to? Yemen? Damn, those Houthis would love to have me. All right, a couple more super chats.
This is from Ghost Walker. Thanks for the super chat, mate. Evening, fellas. Avi, you're a legend. Love your show and thank you for such an informative platform. What are your thoughts on alligator Alcatraz? Do you know about alligator Alcatraz?
Yeah, so that was the Trump's thing in Miami, in Florida, no?
Florida, the ICE facility, which is a like a detention center surrounded by alligators in some swamp. And look, there's been a lot of criticism of that because it's like these kind of very strict settings and kind of like cages almost and beds upon beds.
You mean it's
and
a jail?
People are saying, it's a detention center, right?
Yeah.
But when you're talking about that, right, and you're looking at Australia's track record, we pretty much, I think we did worse than alligator Alcatraz. We bought an offshore island of some, third world small country in Nauru and started shipping off people to the middle of nowhere. So I think it's
I reckon it's a good idea. I reckon we should do crocodile Alcatraz here.
Yeah, we should do crocodile Alcatraz for the illegal immigrants and the queue jumpers and all those people, and especially the offenders and criminals. Instead of putting them out into the wider public, we should be sending them to detention center.
Hey, well, what about those ones that got out and ended up raping everyone and all?
That's what I mean. They should be in crocodile Alcatraz somewhere up in Northern Territory up there.
Yeah. I'm down. Let's do it. One more super chat. Thank you everyone for the super chats tonight. Really appreciate them.
Alan knows. Thanks for the super chat. Maxwell's the only person in jail. I find this strange. Andrews, as Prince Andrews, paid Virginia shut up money, but no jail time. We will never find out. And that's the timing of Virginia Giuffre's death as well, which is not that long ago. This Epstein thing kind of being wrapped up by the Trumps. I mean, all this timing is quite interesting. Like, it's pretty convenient for a lot of people when you look at it with those conspiratorial kind of eyes at this. It does feel like a lot of loose ends have been tied up by the Trump administration, and it's all kind of forget about it now type of thing.
Yeah, it's hard not to look at it with those glasses on. I think the world has gone a bit nuts in conspiracies after, especially COVID, when we got lied to so much. People did go down rabbit holes. However, I think this one, there is clearly something to it. And we are being lied to. It doesn't mean that everybody's view or everybody's conspiracy on it, and every expert who comes out from there, you see on all these shows, this guy was a CIA, ex-CIA, ex-FBI, like all these X things always come in and have these opinions which are supposed to be more valid because they know what's going on. It's just people guessing. I think the only way we're ever going to get any sort of truth is when documents from within the file that haven't been destroyed are actually released, and or evidence of destruction of evidence is produced.
You need like a WikiLeaks type situation, right? Where some third party, somehow clandestine group gets access to the files and dumps it on the public, and then it's no longer possible to hide the inconvenient things that they didn't want the public to know.
Yep. Okay. I think we move on to this is the final subject I had on the list for today. So unless you have something else, but it might take us about half an hour anyways. So let's get into it. Tucker Carlson interviewed the president of Iran, the Islamic regime of Iran. Now, he announced it in the weirdest way. Actually, I want to watch that video first.
That was pretty weird.
It was a weird announcement of it, and he hasn't done that before, right? He hasn't done it like that before. So, and I feel like after watching it, because I actually did watch the whole thing today, it was one of the hardest interviews personally to watch because it was just such a poor performance. But I feel like after watching it, I realized why he kind of did this
statement,
this guilty statement before producing it. Let's have a listen.
We just finished up an interview with Masoud Pezeshkian, who is the president of Iran, the 70-year-old heart surgeon who leads the country we were just at war with about a week and a half ago. We know we'll be criticized for doing this interview. Why did we do it anyway? Well, we did it because we were just at war with Iran 10 days ago and maybe again. And so our view, which has remained consistent over time, is that American citizens have the constitutional right and the God-given right to all the information they can gather about matters that affect them. If their country is doing something with their money in their name, they have a right, an absolute right, to know as much about it as they can. And that would include hearing from the people they're fighting. Now, can you believe everything you hear from the president of Iran? Probably not. But that's not the point. The point is you should be able to decide for yourself whether you believe it or not. And keep in mind that anyone who seeks to deny you that right is not your ally, but your enemy. By the way, we have also put in, for the third time in the last several months, an interview request with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and we hope he...
Hold on, I think I want to break it down while we're going through, because he jumps around a few things. I don't disagree with what he's actually saying there. And this is the tricky thing about Tucker. He's a lot more sophisticated than somebody like Candace. Candace is super transparent what she's doing. In fact, you've got to be an idiot not to see what Candace is doing, right? Tucker works on a higher level of what Candace is doing. So he's going, so firstly, why has he never done this before? Even with Putin, I think he opened his show by saying, I vaguely remember, we've been at war, we've been funding the one side of the war again, and nobody has spoken to Putin, and it makes you ask why, which in itself was disingenuous, because a lot of the media asked Putin for sure, and they were all saying that. They showed their requests to Putin, didn't get it. The reason why Putin agreed to do it with Tucker, he thought it would, clearly his press team viewed it as an opportunity to speak to the American public through a friendly outlet. And when you watch the Tucker interview with Putin, I don't care what you think. At the end of the day, it was a softball interview in which Tucker didn't really push back on anything, didn't follow up on anything. When he asked questions, it wasn't, they often weren't answered, and they would just went into some big history level lesson from the real kind of KGB perspective. Yeah. And, can you hear me? Yeah. And so I thought you were going to step in and say something. I was leaving you some room to talk. And then he goes on. So he's saying here, he's acting like people's problem with him doing it is the fact he's doing it. Yes. I don't give a shit. Like, in fact, I would love to have the opportunity to interview Putin and the president of Iran and all these characters, right? If I could go back in history, I would love to interview Hitler. But at the end of the interview, it's not going to look like I support them or I'm giving them a platform for their propaganda. I would be putting the questions to them and then holding them to answering my questions. And if their answer is not good enough, I would follow up with another question, trying to make them, put them in the corner. And there's examples in this interview that he does. And then he says his thing of, like, trying to act like he's this completely unbiased.
Yeah, he's just giving you your God-given rights to hear information from, your enemies, because as Americans, you need to hear the enemy's information to know that our money is being used in a legitimate war. Like that's kind of the way he gives it. And he says, if someone wants to deny you this, they're actually your enemy, which is quite interesting, because if someone wants to deny you the right to hear some information, they're your enemy. What if someone wants to nuke you and says death to America?
They're not your enemy. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's all these kind of contradictions in there from Tucker, and I enjoyed in his Putin interview in the sense that even this one, because these leaders don't necessarily talk to Western media. They don't talk to Western media.
Did you watch this one? Did you watch it?
I watched parts of it. So it's good to hear their perspectives. But I think, as people in the West, to present it to people as something of a it's kind of like this, breaking unbiased kind of, we're going to hear the truth from these people. And the admission that Tucker makes, I don't know if he makes it here yet, maybe play the rest of the video, but where he says like, there's certain things I didn't ask because I knew the honest answer.
We get to that. Hold on. That's coming up, right? But even
that was
just
very
on
telling.
What he said till now was telling, because remember, this is like a guilt video that he's posted prior to publishing the actual interview. Which, surely he didn't feel good about it, because from a perspective of journalism, it was a shit piece of journalism. It was like the worst journalism I've ever seen when it comes to an interview of somebody like Tucker, who has his experience and knows how to conduct an interview. And the way he can compare it is kind of like the way he interviewed Ted Cruz, who, say what you want, he's an American patriot, last week or 2 weeks ago, compared to the way he interviewed this guy who runs a country that literally chants death to America and put out a fatwa against his president that he professes to love, right? But he says that, so people that are challenging they're your enemy, and then he goes, and you got to hear him. And does everything he say going to be true? Probably not. But weird that within the interview, he doesn't take that approach. He's actually accepting everything that this president says.
Yes.
And even when it is like
it's easy to refute.
It's objectively insane what he's saying.
Yeah.
And Tucker just accepts it and moves on. And we'll get to that in a minute. But then we'll go now. Let's finish watching this and it'll get to the point that you're saying and then make that point.
That's that. The interview is limited by a couple of factors. One, it was done by remote through a translator. That's always awkward. For another, I don't speak Persian. And there are all kinds of questions that I didn't ask the president of Iran, particularly questions to which I knew I could not get an honest answer, such as, was your nuclear program totally disabled by the bombing campaign by the U.S. government a week and a half ago? There's no chance he's going to answer that question honestly. I didn't bother to ask it.
And that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So that means by definition you think he's telling the truth about everything else, as in why they chant death to America.
Worse, he knows he lies on certain things, but he's happy to either, like, for whatever reason, the other lies he tells, he wants people to hear the interpretation of that as being a truth or a lie based on what the Iranian guy himself says, even though for other things he's determined that he's definitely going to lie. So he's interviewing someone that he thinks is someone that's going to lie on purpose to cover himself. And then all of a sudden the interview that he's doing for everyone else, I know it's confusing what I'm saying, because Tucker is himself confusing the whole situation by the way he's presenting it.
Well, the point you make is really good, because, okay, so why didn't he just ask it? And whatever he answered, even if you say, like, he could have done what he did to Ted Cruz, gone, really? Like, he could have played that little game with him. Or he could have just asked it like he asked all this other stuff that clearly the guy was lying in response to. And then it would have given us something to compare to. It would have gone, okay, he's clearly lying about that. You know, if you're genuinely just giving these standard questions. Like, Tucker didn't even need to be in this interview. That's how ridiculous it was. He could have just given the guy the questions and let the guy just answer it to a screen, because it didn't matter. Because Tucker did not react to anything he actually said. Nothing. In the half an hour, I watched the whole thing. He didn't react to it. He didn't push back on anything. He just accepted. So the idea that he wasn't going to ask one of the most fundamental questions because he thought the guy was going to lie about it, at best, is stupid. At worst, it's because Tucker knows that his response is going to end up exposing that the guy lies about everything. And then it means the whole interview would have been irrelevant, and you couldn't, like, it didn't matter why even bother watching it when he's just lying about anything and not being pushed back for it.
Yeah, definitely.
In fact, from an American perspective, even from the CIA's perspective, is unknowable. So we dispense with those, and I asked him very simple questions, such as, what is your goal? Do you seek war with the United States? Do you seek war with Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Again, the purpose of this was not to get to the absolute truth. That's impossible in an interview like this. The purpose of the interview was to add to the corpus of knowledge from which Americans can derive their own opinion. Learn everything you can, and then you decide. That's the promise of America. And we hope that this interview does a small part to making that promise real. This interview will be up as soon as we have done editing it, as noted.
It is.
I mean, these platitudes about this is the promise of America really is the promise of America to hear from one of your enemies that you are saying before you even put the interview up is a known liar that's going to be lying about the most obvious of things potentially. That is the promise of America, apparently, to hear from him in a way that's not challenged. Like you said, this interview is not challenged.
Everyone who's defending him are saying this is what journalism is, and anyone that's going against him for this is anti real old journalism. And it's like, no. Did we just? Oh no,
we're here.
And anyone that is against real journalism, it's like, no, I actually really would have loved if Tucker challenged him on, and we'll go through some of it. Let's just read a couple of these super chats, and then I wanted real journalism. I would have loved that. That's what you want from about our enemies. We want to actually have somebody challenge them.
Yeah, Varun, thanks for the super chat again. This interview is as honest as Tucker's toupee.
Does he wear a toupee? I wouldn't even know.
I don't know.
In the comments, tell us, is he wearing a toupee?
Stu Peters says, why has Tucker taken the Kool-Aid? Yeah, they call him Tucker Carlson. Who knows? He's denied it.
I don't know if it's. Look, I think it's just a trend.
There's some people in the comments saying, "Oh, he was a good interview, whatever." To put it in context, someone in the comments said he should. We wanted him to interview Albo, for instance. Imagine Tucker Carlson before he interviews Albo, he says, "I'm not going to ask Albanese about the $275 energy bill because I know he's going to lie about it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to ask you about all these things because he lies about it. We're going to get the truth from him. I'm just going to ask him stuff that it's in the air. We don't know whether it's true or not. So it's crazy. You wouldn't conduct any interview under that pretense.
Man, like when you do a journalistic interview, you actually ask the questions that you think they're going to lie, and if you think they're lying, you challenge them on the lie.
Well, you want to hear about the lies, yeah? You're challenging them on their lies.
Exactly.
Like it's not a PR campaign for your enemy.
Oh, this is what you were talking about. This is actually.
Miss Spencer, thanks for the super chat. This time I disagree with you guys. I love your live shows. I hope Tucker interviews Albo. Could you imagine the slaughter he gives Australia? I mean, it depends. Tucker, it would depend on the way that he wants to frame Albanese. At least that's what it appears like. Because if he frames the questions as I'm only going to ask him these questions because he lies about the other stuff anyway. So, can Albanese's interview be judged as an objectively honest
interview? And the sad thing is,
interview?
He would probably conduct the Albo interview well because Albo, he sees as his political enemy.
Yes,
and the crazy world we live in now, Tucker sees Putin and Iran as, in a weird way, his ally. And that's why he sees Ted Cruz as more of his enemy than them. And that's why when you see the way he interviews Ted Cruz, it is a lot more confrontational, a lot more challenging, picks him up on trivia, like what was the population of Iran?
Population of Iran.
He didn't ask this dude the population of Israel or the population of America. They're chanting death to America. Do you even know how many people live in America? How many are illegal? Yeah. You know nothing about America. Why do you want to get into a fight with America? He doesn't ask any of that. So, look, the thing is, Tucker can be a good journalist. He used to do that. And he's very smart. He knows what he's doing. He's been around doing this for many, many years. And to be honest, his pre-video to me says he felt crap about the final product. And he was already creating excuses prior to its release. He was giving justifications for not actually doing proper journalism. So even with the Putin one, he didn't do that. In the Putin one, he definitely didn't do a pre-video. He opened it with that. He opened it with a lie, saying we've been funding I think he said we're essentially at war with this country through proxy for the last 3 years, but nobody's come to actually interview our enemy. That's why tonight I am sitting with this guy. So I'm paraphrasing, but it was along those lines, right? He wasn't saying, and he didn't, in Putin's one, he didn't say, I'm not going to ask him about this because he's going to lie to me. He did none of that. He opened it as in, he's the only journalist on the planet that's willing to speak to Putin. When that's completely not true. It's just like here when he says he's reached out to Benjamin Netanyahu, to their office to have the interview, but so far has been rejected. And he says that about Zelensky as well. And of course they reject him, because why would they sit with somebody who gives free passes to our enemies and then treats what should be his allies as the enemy? It's not like he's not equal in the way he conducts his interviews anymore. It's clear where he stands. If you're not lying to yourself, then you can see how he's approaching all this, because his position is made clear through the last year progressing. The last year, his interviews, his questions, who he's interviewing, who he keeps blaming, there's a trend there. So it is clear. I guarantee you, if the Israeli Prime Minister came on there, he wouldn't go soft on him like that. He would go hard like he does with Ted Cruz. And so obviously, why would the Israeli Prime Minister give up his spot interview to do a ridiculous one-sided interview with somebody that wants to catch him up on little trivia stuff to show he wants to do gotchas to embarrass what he perceives as his enemy. That's the truth.
Yeah.
But Miss Spencer, thank you for the super chat. And in our group, you can have a different opinion. Like some people here like Rukshan. I don't agree with that either. Last super chat, and we'll.
Mark, thanks for the super chat. Tehran Tucker is a traitor like Hanno Jane Fonda. I mean, look, America had the same issue, I think, during the Vietnam War and other previous wars, where you do have people of prominence that do appear to be supporting the enemy cause. Now, in time, there might be aspects of what Tucker's saying which is proven to be right and all these kind of things. These things happen over time, but I think a lot of the discussions today, the criticisms of Tucker and even what we're discussing, is more around his approach to this, not the fact that he did an interview or not the fact that he's, conducting these journalists. Like, it's good to do these things, of course. It's more so the approach. So, yeah.
It's all of it's kind of funny, but I'll pick. We'll watch a couple of little bits on it. The first one was, what was it? It was the Death to America, because I found that probably the funniest part. Oh, yeah.
Many Americans are afraid of Iran. You say you're not afraid, but Americans are afraid of Iran. And they believe that Iran would like to strike the United States with a nuclear weapon. They see video of Iranians saying death to America, describing our country as the great Satan. What is your opinion of that? Should we be afraid of Iran?
I believe that this is a very wrong impression that anybody might have of Iran or the Iranians. I would like to remind you that Iran has never invaded another country in the last 200 years. When they say death to the United States, it doesn't mean death to, they don't mean death to the people of the United States or even to the officials of the United States. They mean death to crimes, death to killing and carnage, death to supporting killing others, death to insecurity and instability. This is. Have you ever heard that an Iranian killing an American? Have you ever heard that? Or a terrorist that was Iranian and he carried out a terrorist attack against the Americans? No, it was your president who confessed that the Americans created the ISIS in our region, and they were responsible for this wrong image that is portrayed of religion or the Muslims in the world. And once again, I would like to tell you and remind you that this is not death to the American people or to the officials, death to crimes and atrocities, to bullying, to the use of force, and anybody who would like to become an accomplice in the crimes perpetrated by others.
So
I mean, you got to be a special kind of stupid to believe that crap.
But
I mean,
like,
literally, this is the talking points that the propagandized Iranian regime feed to the public there. It's been now fed to Tucker Carlson. He's sitting there like a little schoolboy accepting it all. And it's just ridiculous.
And the thing is that we do know. See, I think they attribute about 603 American military deaths to Iran. So why wouldn't you pull him up at least on that? And then the other one is like, you're saying death to America actually means death to greed, death to killing, death to... So why don't you chant that? Why are you chanting? That's like imagine going to court here. Yeah. Imagine going to court here because you've been charged for a death threat against Rukshan. And your defense in court is, Your Honor, I didn't mean Rukshan, I meant bad video editing. Like, what are you talking about? And then, like, do you think the judge would be a judge if he didn't turn around and go, how do you get death to bad video editing from death to Rukshan? They go, Your Honor, his bad video editing is what made me really angry. And have you ever seen me kill anyone else but video editors? Come on.
But this is the thing, right? So the supporters and the people that want to turn a blind eye to this, they're like, oh, it's a cultural interpretation. It's like, you don't understand this is the culture and this is how they are. But then literally you have videos of their generals, their ayatollahs on national television in Iran talking about executing President Trump, talking about assassinating him. They want to put a fatwa on him. There's a bounty for him. I think it's $20 million.
Oh, he denied it. I think Tucker does ask him now about...
Two Iranian ayatollahs have issued fatwas against Donald Trump. What does that mean exactly, and what do you think of it?
To the best of my knowledge, they have not issued decrees or fatwas against any individual.
Like, they're known fatwas, like just denying.
To the best of my knowledge, I mean, this is the president acting like he's like, oh, to the best of my knowledge,
and their propaganda is so poor, like in the frame, and this is the thing, they had to edit it in like this. They could have edited the guy's just a headshot, right? But Tucker's included like this whole guy's propaganda thing where he's got the flag and he's got the Ayatollah there. And it's like, dude, you're literally running propaganda and letting him lie and not pushing him back on anything, like just accepting this ridiculous nonsense.
Or against Donald Trump, and first off, it has nothing to do with the Iranian government or to His Eminence the Supreme Leader of Iran. Or what they actually meant by the fatwa was the in condemnation of.
So hold on. So he says he's not aware about the fatwa, but what they meant in relation to the fatwa. He literally contradicts himself there, but you can
insult to a religion or religious personalities, and they were actually saying that this is deplorable, this is unacceptable. So it was not directed towards the U.S. president or any other individual, and there might be people with their own ideas and opinions, but I can assure you that the meaning of this fatwa should not be construed or considered as a threat against any individual.
So the fatwa that he doesn't know about shouldn't be taken as a threat to Donald Trump. And just
Ron ever backed an assassination attempt against Donald Trump?
So he doesn't push back on anything. He didn't push back on it. He's actually trying to help the guy solidify his argument by going, so the fatwa that we all know about that has been in black and white that you can go look up yourself, the 2 fatwas. Okay, cool. They're not real. But they are real, but they just don't, there's nothing to worry about. And so Tucker's response is, so has anyone actually ever tried to kill President Trump? Which, because obviously if you tell me they haven't, that means you're not lying about the fatwas, because that means nobody's ever trying to kill the president. Like, it's just, he should have turned around and go, really? Are you taking us for a ride? We know about the fatwas. And we also hear about these plans to kill the president. Are you denying that too? That's the way you frame the question, not like, sir, I understand. So have you guys...
And that's the difference, right? Like someone like a Trump, he's like, I'm going to kill Soleimani. I'm going to, if I want to, I'll kill Khomeini. Like if you ask Trump these questions as the leader of the United States of America, whatever you think of Trump, he will tell the truth. But the Iranians in this instance, because they are the weaker force in this exchange in terms of America and Iran, and they want to paint themselves as a victim. So they're like, oh no, we did nothing wrong. We're totally innocent. We're totally good. Fatwa, what fatwa? We would never kill President Trump. We've never tried to assassinate him. No way. Look at, we're peace loving. Everything's great. Come to Iran. Forget everything. And it's just insane that if you're a reasonable person, having seen everything else that these people have been saying now for decades and decades, the Americans that they have clearly killed soldiers, and during the Iran hostage crisis, lots of Americans were killed. Like, we know that they killed the Americans right during that time. I mean, it's insane to just accept that at face value for a
I forgot the hostage crisis as well. Like, how did he not bring that up in response to the blatant lie that they've never killed an American? Like, and the people just defending Tucker, because I don't even understand why, because it's like confirmation. Like, he's actually, because you've fallen into this narrow place where you're becoming tribal about your position on, let's say, Ukraine, Israel, all the woke right stuff now, like everything to do with it's mainly those 2 issues really, and that you cannot see the blatant obvious. Even in this case, Tucker saw it. That's why he put out that video. And go and watch the rest of it. It is all the same. It's all that.
And it's ridiculous to think that they don't want to kill President Trump, because Trump assassinated their number 1 general in the IRCG, their beloved general, Soleimani. There was a hit list out there that included Trump, Ted Cruz, I believe, and a few others who were involved in the American administration in doing all of that. So, of course, the Iranians want to kill Americans. They're their enemies. So it's, again, boggles my mind that, even for us watching Far From Australia, having seen this for a long time, the sentiment around that. And why wouldn't they want to assassinate Trump? Of course, he's blowing up their generals.
Their entire and they knew that this was coming, because unlike the fake MAGA people who were supporting Trump, even though he was saying he was going to do all this stuff, they knew that, like, if Biden was in or Kamala, there's no way they would have dropped those bombs and destroyed the nuclear facilities. So they saw Trump as that threat, because they believed Trump, because Trump, even in his first administration, was trying to unlike any politician, he was really trying to fulfill his promises. And in this one, he came out guns blazing. Like, he really did it fast, because he learnt from the last administration. And they knew that was going to happen, because it was obvious. Like, that's why I knew it was going to happen when I was there in the lead up and like the months before. And that, even at I remember his massive rally at Madison Square Gardens, where it was like they were calling him an anti-Semite. And it's like, dude, the whole place is Jewish. What are you talking about? Everybody, like, every Jew knows that this guy is the real deal. For the same reasons that Iran knew it. Anyways, you can go watch his full thing. It's a bunch of that. Basically, it's a question that's answered with either he just doesn't answer even the question that's being asked, like he just goes on some random other answer and is not pulled back in. And then when he just blatantly lies like he did there, he's just not challenged on the lies. It's like if I wasn't doing it out of interest on multiple levels, like one, obviously the topic, two, the people, three, just it being probably like the biggest interview of today, I would have found that one of the poorest video. Like, it's just a waste of time because sure, like you're better off asking ChatGPT what would an Iranian official respond to this.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. There's a couple of super chats, and unless there's something trending at the moment, we'll wrap it up after these super chats. So once we get through the super chats, perfect. I'd say so. There you go.
Thanks, Treetop Music, for the super chat. BDS equals BB derangement syndrome. You're welcome. So that's boycott.
Not bad. Boycott, divest,
boycott, divest.
Yeah. Boycott, divest, sanctions is that group that's been around for many years that tells people to divest from Israel. The funniest thing about them is whenever you see like their promotional stuff, they're always on like a computer that has an Intel processor, which is like Israeli.
Yeah.
Like all the technology they're using to promote this stuff has something Israeli in it. But good on them. I like the way you've repurposed it, BDS, and it's totally true. There is massive Bibi derangement syndrome, and I'm coming from somebody that used to be a massive fan of Bibi. COVID, I lost a bunch of respect for him. Within this war, I think he's mostly executed some pretty tough things really well. Has he stuffed up? Absolutely. I don't know in which wartime leaders haven't stuffed up. The thing that is probably not helpful to it is the fact that he has these trials going on at the same time, which gives his detractors the kind of excuse that he's trying to prolong the war to protect himself from. I don't actually believe that. I don't think it's true. Yeah. I think he wants to walk away. I think people that say that don't actually understand the Israeli mentality. They don't realize that in Israel, the most important thing to an Israeli leader, especially like Bibi, who's going to go down historically as in history, he's going to be remembered as one of Israel's longest serving, biggest political figures in the first 100 years since modern Israel. So I don't think that's true. I don't think he's going to burn down his legacy. I think he wants his legacy to be the guy. And by the looks of things, since October 7, which that was a massive failure, and that will come down on him at the end of it. However, he will then be, if everything manages to play out the way it's currently heading, which is Hamas is defeated, Gaza's handed over to some either Palestinian Authority or a international Arab authority to become something aside from a terrorist hotbed. Hezbollah taken down in the most kind of insane way with the pager operation, walkie-talkie operation, and Nasrallah. Then Iran just being decapitated the way they have. Probably the Houthis are going to be knocked out pretty. I think that's kind of their next thing at the moment. And what we're also hearing, the whispers of the expansion of the Abraham Accords in the way. And by the way, also for Israel, that's why a lot of people blame Israel for that new leader. I don't think they had any. It was kind of like a collateral damage, which looks like it's working in Israel's favor. So I can see where people get the conspiracy theories for it. I think it's certainly working in Israel's favor because it looks like these Abraham Accords are expanding, and it looks like potentially Syria, Lebanon. Lebanon right now is disarming the final things of Lebanon, and it looks like they may be joining the Abraham Accords. You'll have Saudi Arabia, potentially Qatar. Like, you're going to have the entire Middle East is changed from the horrific incident of October 7, which I've said this before, makes it really easy for the Israel haters to act like it was all one big planned conspiracy. And I don't even know how to answer that anymore because, God, Bibi really has come out with like the goods after all. It's been a painful couple of years, and it's cost Israel in the PR war, like Israel in the court of public opinion around the world is at its lowest. However, what matters more to the state of Israel is its personal state, because it doesn't matter, even if you think highly of Israel, if they are defeated by all the surrounding neighbors that were there prior to October 7 that wanted to see her wiped off the map, who cares if it's great in the court of public opinion? Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. If you're dead, doesn't matter if everyone likes you. Here, right now, it looks like Israel is going to survive this and is going to come out stronger than ever, with more friends in the region than ever.
Yeah.
And over time, hopefully, things will work out better in the rest of the world. But I think, I don't think it's. I think Bibi derangement syndrome. That's how we got onto that. Is a real thing. So thank you for that. Thank you for that super chat. And this is the next one for you. There we go.
Brad, Rukshan and Avi, is the Bibi Files documentary Iranian propaganda? I mean, there's a lot of things floating around there. I've seen this is being shared online.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I wouldn't say it's.
I haven't seen.
I wouldn't say it's Iranian propaganda. There's just a lot of kind of. It's not propaganda. It's the same way that people share stuff about Trump. I mean, exactly. It's the same thing. Like there's things about Trump. Yeah, so you just got to view it in the same. I view it in the same light. Obviously, you judge leaders by their actions.
I don't know who made that. I've seen like Candace really pushing that documentary. I haven't watched it. I don't know. I know, internally in Israel, Bibi Netanyahu is a divisive figure. Prior to October 7, there was a few years of rallying, and my mum would go to a rally for Bibi, my brother would go to a rally against Bibi, but that was Israel. It's such a real democracy in which the family were on opposing sides of these things, but then everyone would come home for Shabbat dinner. Do you know what I mean? That's a thriving democracy. That's what you want to see, and that's the way it should be. And yes, he's in the courts, and the courts can play out. And a former prime minister of Israel, who ironically they're all using as now the defense against Bibi or whatever, he sat in jail for corruption, and by the way, put in jail by an Arab judge. So that's literally how it works there.
That's what I mean. So it's like that's what when I say it's like a Trumpian figure. It's a similar thing, right? The arc of Donald Trump's presidency, where he is today. If you're a Donald Trump supporter, you're a MAGA supporter, you look at everything that's happened to him over the last few years, and you would say that they used lawfare and they targeted him because you're a supporter. Now, if you're not a Donald Trump supporter, you would be saying, oh, well, he got away with it. And even with someone like Bibi, Israel and all around the world, the same other leaders, same kind of story, depending on where you fall politically in your support and if you don't support him. But overall, we cannot deny someone like Donald Trump will go down in history as a, this massive figure of U.S. politics. And in the same way, I think Bibi will go down in that way as well. And it'll always be divisive outside of Israel, just like Trump is divisive outside of Israel, because everyone has their say and their opinion on it. And what's true and what's not true, and these documentaries and these scandals and all these kind of things. At the end of the day, when Trump's presidency is done, when Bibi's presidency is done, none of those things will even matter when they're old men and past their time, and most likely in another decade or so, no longer with us. They'll just be parts of our history. So I don't understand this fascination of is it going to do something? The revelations about Donald Trump or the revelations about Bibi, is it going to change something? No, I don't think so.
All right, last few super chats, guys. If you want to get your super chats in, your questions, do it quickly now because we've got about 4 left, and then we will be out for the night. Really appreciate everyone being here tonight. Make sure to smash that like button on whatever platform you're watching this on now. Give it a quick share so people can go back and watch it. It's been a great episode. And also, especially if you're on YouTube and that, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you get all of our lives. You get the notification about our lives. I think on YouTube you've got to go notification and then you've got to scroll down and press all, I think. All right, Miss Spencer.
Miss Spencer, Decent Tucker interview, 60 minutes plus. This one was well short. Only Mossad agents are successful with killing and insurance claims like 9/11. Thoughts, Avi? It's a bit of a wild one there.
So firstly, decent Tucker interviews. I don't think the length of an interview is what makes Tucker interviews good or bad. I think Tucker in the last year has just gotten worse and worse because he's driven by an agenda that I think is just kind of dark and getting darker. And, you know, he's doing what he used to. Like, if you watch old Tucker videos, he, a bit like Candace, talks about the new Tucker, or Candace was talking about the new Candace. Only Mossad agents are successful with killing insurance client. Like, I don't know what you're trying to say. Like, do you think that 9/11 was a Mossad insurance job? Do you think they got the payout for it?
I mean, look, for a small country of Israel and its population, the way that people talk about its intelligence agency and spies and the success of their plans and the things that they do, I have to say it's very, very, very impressive. The things that are attributed to Mossad and to Israel. So as an observer that's watching this but might not know any of these things, just hearing, you know, I saw recently someone was attributing the massacre in Hobart to Port Arthur massacre to Mossad as well.
Why did they want that? What was the theory there?
Well, I can't remember now, but I'm just saying
you must be a part of it if you don't know.
The level of things that I've seen, not just like I've seen things in India being attributed to Mossad, like pretty much anywhere in the world that someone wants to attribute something, it's to Mossad. So this is a very successful intelligence agency, and if that was our country, like I would want ASIO as an Australian to be as successful in going after our enemies or people we perceive as enemies as the Mossad is. I don't know. I don't know if it's like people are criticizing them. I don't know what it is about saying the Mossad. So anyway, that's what's my.
It's become the new.
People are going to say that I'm only saying this because I'm being trained
you remember it's like in COVID in that period when you said something that people didn't like, they got controlled opposition,
yeah.
And it's one of those things that you don't actually have to provide any evidence for. You just say it. And because it's a conspiracy, like, yeah, you're probably just controlled opposition. So it's the same with the Mossad. It's like everything is Mossad, which is just like another way of saying the Jews did it or whatever. And it's like the level of proof is like, of course, there's no proof that the Mossad did it because the Mossad's the Mossad. They are probably the best intelligence agency in the world.
Yeah.
However, you know, it is a tiny country by landmass and population that their focus is very particular, and their focus is and as you can see, and you'll probably all the movies coming out in the future after this war's done, Lebanon, the way they did that over 10 years, the beeper and walkie-talkie operation, and then obviously also how to take out the entire from Nasrallah, so the head and the entire top brass of Hezbollah. That was where they had, a big chunk of their resources. On top of that, Iran, because Iran has been, even when I was in the army, which is like over 20 years ago, Iran was the biggest threat. Oh no, it was exactly 20 years ago. Iran was the threat at the time. People were worried about this war back then. So all the resources of the intelligence agency, or like the majority of it, and that's why Israel dropped the ball in places like Gaza, because it's not technically the Mossad that's supposed to be there. It's Shin Bet, but still, their focus was the West Bank rather than Gaza, because they thought Gaza was like, there was a secure border, relying on technology, blah blah. So they just didn't focus. So do you think that the Mossad has so much more resources to be everywhere else in the world? I can guarantee you the reason why, for example, the Houthis in Yemen so far have had a relatively easy time from Israel is because Israel has never really worked on intelligence in Yemen. Because until October 7, I don't think the Houthis ever fired anything on... Yemen's never fired at Israel ever. So they never really had a reason to waste any efforts or proper efforts. They probably have some agents in every Islamic state, but there's no real resources applied to it like there has been in Lebanon and in Iran and even Syria, to be honest, they would have had a lot as well. Like you're seeing that play out now. There's a lot of, they're doing arrests in Syria at the moment. So there's resources in Syria. Lebanon and Syria are neighboring countries who were all backed by Iran, and Iran was the head of the snake. That's where their resources were. To think that they've got really even agents in Australia doing, like, serious agents here is ridiculous. Like, why? Australia poses zero threat to Israel ever, besides the fact that they're allies. They pose no threat because Australia's on literally the other side of the world.
Yep.
Australia is so it's part of the West anyway, so they are, and even if they weren't, it's not like Indonesia even. Israel wouldn't have any assets in Indonesia, and Indonesia hates Israel. Indonesia publicly hates Israel. Israelis can't travel to Bali or Indonesia because they don't recognize Israeli passports, and they probably have near no assets in Indonesia. Because how would Indonesia ever target Israel?
Well, that definitely sounds like something the Mossad would say.
100%. Do you know what? At least my responses were more in depth than the Iranian president. At least I tried harder.
Yes, you tried harder.
Let's read these. We've got 3 more, guys. If you want to.
Baz, thanks, Baz. Good night, lads. Vote 1, Rukshahan. Thanks, Baz. Thanks, mate. Thanks for voting for me.
Rukshahan. We could just call him his wife's name, Rukshani. I still love that. I still love that you guys share a name. That's pretty cute. This one's just a plain super chat.
Thanks for super chat, mate.
EK. What? How would you pronounce? Am I missing what that's meant to say? I should just give up. And not point out how we're not getting it.
Equity. There you go.
Equity. We'll
Equity. Or the case
silent. Thank you. Really appreciate the super chat.
This is from Alan Knows again. Thanks for another super chat. Candace has a big following like Charles Manson. Yeah, I mean, Candace does have a big following. I think it keeps growing. Same as Tucker. There's a big audience for what they're saying, and you've seen that around the world that there's a big audience for these things. Now, just because there's a big audience doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't make it true, or doesn't mean that it's a popular opinion. I mean, these audiences today, international audiences, come from everywhere. You have to understand that there is an entire Middle East where the default position of millions and millions of people is the death and the destruction of the state of Israel. That is a default position from birth to death in those countries. Like, there's no, like, here we talk about debates and gray areas and we discuss the Mossad and, what this and that, the history. No, there's none of that in that part of the world. Default status is the state of Israel, and all Jews should perish, and it should be destroyed and returned.
And it's not only the Middle East. Indonesia, outside of Bali, is like that.
Muslim default position of many Islamic world. The default position of the Islamic world, where there's billions and billions of people, is the destruction of the state of Israel. That is the default position. Don't kid yourself that there's people in those countries having these intellectual debates like we are having in the West about these things. It's not like that. Even in countries where there's, a country like, for instance, like India or Sri Lanka, where there's these Islamic or Muslim populations, even for them, the default position for these massive groups is the state of Israel should not exist. So when you have that position and you have commentators in the US and other parts of the West saying things that your people agree with, of course they're going to follow you. Of course they're going to like it. It's the same reason that they're showing videos of Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes on of Iranian TV, because it matches the propaganda of some of these states, and it matches just the general view of these of people. Like, imagine you were born with the view that this thing should not exist. It's hard for us to imagine because but we didn't grow up like that. But for many people, it's a default position. So that does come with the audience, and some people want to tap into that.
And it's funny because that's like, even that Roman that I kept bumping into, interviewed him on the street, and I remember at one point in the interview, he's like, in one of the interviews, he goes, I've cared about Palestine my whole life. I remember at 10 years 10 years old, I was at rallies protesting for Palestine, and I wouldn't have believed that I would be here at 30 still protesting for Palestine. And I didn't even think of it at the time, but I'm just like, dude, do you not ask yourself why at 10 years old, you as an Afghan, so nowhere near Israel, why the hell were you protesting Israel? So that's not something it's not something you just cared about. When you went to school, it wasn't just Israel wasn't affecting you in any which way besides the fact that you were being indoctrinated. And there are almost 2 billion people on this planet that are indoctrinated to that. Then if you compound to that the new right, woke right, that has become like a subculture, who have kind of created that unholy alliance between them. And then you have the far left. They have this weird unholy alliance as well. So there is and even with Candace, you're seeing she's actually attracting people from the far left. They've become friends. The most prominent one is her and that one that got fired. She got fired from one of the left-wing media outlets for being too crazy on the one you remember. She rolled her eyes at one of the hostages. You remember that?
I remember
She got fired from a left because she literally rolled her eyes at one of the hostages, and then the next day you saw her with Candace Owens, and they're talking about how funny it is that they've come all around and and it's like, dude, so that's the reality we live in. Being popular doesn't mean you're right. In fact, if you look at, there's that famous image from a Nazi parade where everybody's doing the Roman salute, and there's one person in the crowd. And we've always said this to people, is be like that person. Be like that person in middle who didn't just join like the sheep. And it's so funny to me to see so many of the COVID people who were talking about the sheep in COVID becoming the sheep after the fact. If you think, and then their response to me is the whole world hates Israel. The whole world has woken up to Israel. It's like, no, you've just joined the mob. And that doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you more moral. It doesn't make you anything. And guess what? At the end of all this, Israel will still exist. The question is, will Australia still exist? I am more confident Israel will exist in 20, 30 years than I am that Australia will exist. And that saddens me because my entire life has been here.
Yeah. As a thriving society, yes, I believe Israel will exist in its current form in 30 years' time. Australia, in the same type of thriving society as it's known for, it's questionable where Australia will be in 30 years. Definitely.
Another super chat while we were just yapping on.
Thanks, Carly Murphy. Thanks for the super chat. Can we just acknowledge for a minute that there is a taxpayer-funded Aboriginal corp in the comments crapping on Israel and Avi? There is someone that says Aboriginal, some sort of corporation that has a name.
Where? What's it called?
And this is the thing. I talk about this all the time. The same people that say that Israel shouldn't exist are the same people that say that Australia shouldn't exist, because the creation of Australia is not too different. If you ask certain groups of people, they will point to the same things and say it is a colonial project, colonizers that should be overthrown, and the lands returned to the indigenous peoples. This is the claims that they'll make. And the funniest thing about all of that is because we have these kind of ethno-nationalists, bucket hat wearing Nazi in Australia saying these type of things, but they will say that Australia's sovereignty is legitimate, but at the same time they will admonish Israel, whereas Israel actually has a thousands of year claim that can be traced back through multiple documents, whereas in Australia, I believe in the sovereignty of Australia and the establishment of Australia and the existence of Australia as a nation today. I don't think that should be questioned by these radical, left-wing Aboriginal activists, because I do believe in the whole concept of the way the countries are conquered and settled and all these kind of things. So I'm all open and agree with that for Australia, and a lot of people agree with that for Australia. But at the same time, the hypocrisy of them to turn around and be like, "Oh, the state of Israel shouldn't exist because it's a colonizing project," is completely ridiculous. Even these Americans that go on about America, these commentators from the woke right or the right-wing Americans that say, "Oh, forget about the Native American Indians. We built America on American land, and we took it from this and that, and we created this country." What's the difference between that and Israel?
Well,
What are you guys going on about?
Well,
Israel actually has more of a claim.
Israel has more of a
Biblical
claim. Israel has more of a claim than almost every country, because what are the three ways that we accept from the left and the right is either via indigenous, so like the left goes on about indigenous rights. Well, the indigenous people, even if you just look at the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Quran as historical recordings, all of them accept that Israel was the land of the Jewish people. So there's the indigenous people, or there's the claim of conquest. So, and that's the one I subscribe to. So I'm not even looking at the indigenous one, because I subscribe to if you conquer it, it's yours. Israel's they've tried to wipe Israel off the map several times. All the Arab armies in 48, 67, and more recently Iran, whatever. They've tried and tried and tried again, and Israel has not only every time defeated them, they've expanded their territory every single time they've started a war with them. So there's conquest. That's the argument to the right. And the third one is if it's recognized or pronounced or whatever, declared by the United Nations, which it was in 48. So no matter which way you look at it, no country, I can't think of any other country that has all three of those. Who has all three of them? No one else. Israel literally has all three of those, and they still have to fight to defend their right to exist. And the easy explanation goes back to what you're talking about. There is 2 billion people that almost their default position out of tribal thing is to hate them and to not accept it. Then you have all the other ones. So like you have all the age-old Jew-hating conspiracies, which it's easy because Jews are such a minority in the world. And it's sad. But you know what? We'll remember the real allies, the people that stood for what they actually believed in, didn't fall for that nonsense and didn't perpetuate that nonsense through this dark period. It's a dark period in time. For me, I know. I've lived it. But I know it'll get better. And at the end of the day, like I said before, I know in 20, 30 years, I know Israel's going to be strong because Israel has to survive and exist, and Israel recognizes its enemy. The question is, you in Australia who's jumping on that bandwagon, do you recognize who the enemy is here? And if you think you do and the enemy is the Jew, well, I can promise you're going to regret that.
Yeah, and I'm no hypocrite. I'm no hypocrite. So that's the thing. I don't like hypocrites. I'd like to be consistent. Bradley, Rukshan, and Avi, I would like to see your review of the Bibi files. Maybe we should watch the Bibi files.
Watch it live.
We should watch it live and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And you know what? I'm happy to watch it. I don't know. Look, I know all the worst people promote it, so I can guess where it's going. But a bit like what you said before, it's like you're all chasing Bibi like they chased Trump, and I don't even care. Bibi's not Israel. What do I personally think? Do I think that maybe he's got some corrupt stuff about him? Yeah, probably. I also think Trump did. Sure. Like whatever. But as a leader for Israel, has he been good? Certainly dropped the ball during COVID. Certainly dropped the ball prior to October 7, and I blame that probably on the internal politics where he was. You know, you got to remember in that 4 years they had 5 years, 4 elections, whatever. It was like a heap of. They kept going back to the polls. There was massive riots between half the country. Like I said, my mum, my brother, they were on different sides of this. So there was that turmoil in Israel, which they dropped the ball on Gaza, and October 7 ended up happening, which I blame him for. But do I think overall, since October 7, he's done, somebody else could do a better job? I'm not sure. Like some of the calls he made were pretty freaking big. And his relationship with Trump, as much as the woke left or the woke right tried to undermine it, tried to act like jump on every opportunity they had to try show that it wasn't, it ended up proving, and it is proving, rock solid. And I don't know if any other leader could have done that. And Trump is of course Trump's a blessing to Israel, because Trump is actually also in the same vein, in a very similar vein to Bibi, a man who doesn't actually listen to all the noise and does what he thinks needs to be done.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, in reality, a lot of this does further American interests. So, I mean, Trump is a businessman. He supports it in the sense that it furthers American interests, brings about peace and prosperity for the region. You got, Al-Nusra Front being taken off the registered terrorist list in America. So Trump is someone that wants to work with all these countries to bring about a time of peace, economic wealth as well, I think, for the Americans through that. But, who wants these blood feuds for the rest of their lives? Like, the West is really trying to move on from this. And there's only really one part of the world that seems to keep, going on with these ancient blood feuds. And if someone can bring about a type of normalcy there where the states and the people there try to coexist in, a relative peace, it's good for the rest of the world. And I think Trump sees that. That's why he supports what Bibi's doing right now. And looking back on this, decade or more from now, if we do see these expanded Abraham Accords and we see countries like Lebanon and stuff joining in, I mean, that will be hailed and looked as a defining moment in the history of the world, and that is what will be remembered. Yep. So if that does happen, if Trump manages to achieve this,
and that's what he's betting on,
figures like Trump and Bibi, regardless of their views on them today, they will be looked upon as people who change the world in a positive manner. I know it's hard to see that because of all the negativity around it, and obviously the controversies involving the war itself. But there's a lot more at players here as well, and I think Trump sees that, and that's why you see, some of the posts the White House is putting up, some of the pictures. I know you shared one, Avi.
I just love how much it triggers everyone.
People get fully triggered by that, but I think that's just Trump being Trump. He sees it in that. He sees it in that way. He's trying to make history, and make of that what you will.
I am finding it hilarious. Yeah. I wrote that. That's the perfect photo, triggering all the right people. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Make sure before you leave, smash that like button one more time if you haven't done so. Smash the share button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, where the bloody hell are you?
That's
subscribe,
right.
Hit that notification bell. Rukshan, where can people find you?
Find me on X, guys, at the real Rukshan. Just follow me on X. X is very easy to use, and then you can find my other socials through X if you want to follow me somewhere else. Obviously, YouTube. You're watching now. Subscribe, please. Always great to get new subscribers on YouTube. But otherwise, jump on X, and you can find all my posts and activities there.
And a huge shout out to all the super chats tonight. Really appreciate you. Anyone that wants to find all my socials, go to followavi.com. We've got all those socials there. And otherwise, go to the YouTube and hit the notification bell. I have been doing a heap more live streams. Live streams are great for the community, and I can see we're growing a good community of you. We also have a community of loyal haters. Love you guys too. But we are growing a community, so I've got some more video content coming up. I'm going to put a bit of effort just also building up my videos because obviously my audience is used to that. I'm trying to balance between doing video content and the live streams and get to the streets at some point. I've got some planned days on the streets as well. I know people love the street stuff, and I could see with the highlight reel, people in the comments were getting excited by the street stuff. That used to be my bread and butter. That's what I used to do. But I'm getting old. And I enjoy being in the studio. And this is the life. But we will mix it all up. But none of that is possible. None of any of that is possible without you guys. So appreciate the likes, the shares, the super chats, the commenting, the getting involved. Love it all. And for now, good night and see you Thursday.
Good night, guys. Take care.